Chapter 923. In a fight between experts, it was a competition of who could adapt to the opponent's fighting style first. As an expert among experts, Wang Yu would definitely not lose to a group of programs in this aspect. Although Grandmasters of Combat had short arms and low attack power, the specialty of the class was also very prominent, and that was that the priority of their grab skills was especially high. Therefore, no matter which class piked a Grandmaster of Combat, they would do their best to distance themselves. Otherwise, once the Grandmaster of Combat cut in, it would basically be a game over. After all, the Grandmaster of Combat players who could still persist in piking were all extremely passionate about this class. Almost everyone had a few very skilled combos, and the explosive damage output of a set of combo punches was not lower than that of an assassin. Of course, being able to cut into the opponent's attack range at will was also difficult, but for Wang Yu, this was not a problem. Even if it was a boss as strong as the City Lord, at this time, wasn't he being dragged around by Wang Yu and abused? Wang Yu first gave the City Lord 2 knee strikes, followed by a leg kick, using the stun effect to interrupt the City Lord's counterattack rhythm. After that, he grabbed the City Lord's wrist with a backhand, and the City Lord fell to the ground. Immediately after, Wang Yu stepped on the City Lord's back and performed a full set of tyrannical fist dance. At the end of the knee strike, it hit the back of the City Lord's head. 54438. A huge critical damage lit up. Under Wang Yu's set of combos, the City Lord's HP dropped by 1/10. After a set of damage output, the City Lord's control was lifted. Wang Yu did not continue fighting, and got up and ran, disappearing in the smoke in a few moments. Damn! Despicable! Do you dare to come out? The City Lord had been beaten up by Wang Yu, and he did not even get to touch Wang Yu's face. One could imagine how he was feeling, and he shouted in an attempt to scold Wang Yu out. It had to be said that as a City Lord, this kind of method was quite childish. All of Wang Yu's skills were off cooldown, and he shouted in the direction of the City Lord, "I'm here." Wang Yu was satisfied with that wave of damage, so he let his guard down a little. In addition, everyone in the courtyard was blind, so it was impossible for Wang Yu to sense his opponent's every move. So, after he shouted, he didn't even think before he lowered his head and pounced again. Due to the height difference, Wang Yu's punch landed below the City Lord's ribs. Little did he know that the Castellan was an epic boss that could grow in battle. After learning his lesson just now, of course, he would not attack first and expose an opening. Instead, he stood there and waited for Wang Yu to block and counterattack. Seeing Wang Yu's appearance, the City Lord finally made his move. Even though he had moved later, Wang Yu was the first to arrive. The City Lord's punch was thrown diagonally, so Wang Yu could not avoid it. Wang Yu, who was shocked by the City Lord's sudden punch, hurriedly lay down on the ground, and only then did he avoid the City Lord's iron fist. The City Lord's punch missed, but he did not stop at all. He immediately jumped up high and aimed both his feet at Wang Yu's chest and stomped down. In the blink of an eye, Wang Yu's arms pushed off the ground, and his feet shot up into the sky. His 2 feet flashed with lightning as he fiercely stomped down between the City Lord's legs. Why was the Sunflower Treasured Book the #1 martial art in the world? Because its passive ability was to eliminate a man's greatest weakness. Physiologically speaking, it allowed the practitioner to be in an invincible position. Unfortunately, this was a Western fantasy game. The City Lord might not have even heard of this kind of magical martial art, let alone practice it. The City Lord's descending force and Wang Yu's descending force simultaneously hit the City Lord's weakest point. The explosion of damage was absolutely unimaginable. The City Lord's shrill scream resounded through the sky. Following that, the City Lord fell to the ground, his hands covering his crotch as he twitched and rolled on the ground. God knows why the designer designed such a weak spot for an NPC. Could it be because the City Lord had a wife? Wang Yu prided himself on being a man of martial virtue. Since the city lord was in such a miserable state, Wang Yu was too embarrassed to go over and give him a few more kicks. So, he took a few steps back and disappeared into the thick fog. And when the girls who were fanning the flames heard the city lord scream, they were all very curious. They really could not understand why a boss who was being killed by a player could still scream in such an ecstatic manner. Because the city lord's scream was so loud, even Blood Red War Flag and Captain Don't Shoot at the entrance of the city lord's mansion could vaguely hear the movement. However, they could not hear it very clearly. Everyone thought that they were hallucinating because they were addicted to the game. After a long while, the city lord finally recovered and stood up again. Seeing that the city lord did not make a sound, Wang Yu took out a piece of trash equipment from his bag and threw it at the city lord. The city lord waved his hand and slapped the equipment away. At that time, Wang Yu followed behind the equipment and rushed in front of the city lord. The city lord did not have time to retract his hand and raised his leg to kick. Wang Yu rolled on the ground and flipped behind the city lord. At the same time, his right hand formed a claw and fiercely grabbed the city lord's crotch. Ah! After being grabbed by Wang Yu, the city lord once again screamed in pain. This time, all the girls were dumbfounded. Damn, the city lord's scream was too lewd. It was fine if he screamed once, but it never stopped. What was this old cow doing? As it turned out, the curiosity of women was quite strong. Yang Na could not help but ask Wang Yu, "What's going on?" Wang Yu blushed slightly and said, "Nothing, nothing. Girls, don't ask nonsense." Hearing Wang Yu's words, the experienced exquisite dream immediately started driving. "Haha, what the F asterisk CK? Old cow, you didn't pull out the city lord's crotch, did you?" Wang Yu broke out in a cold sweat and didn't dare to respond. At the same time, the players outside the city lord's mansion finally confirmed that they were not hallucinating. "Huh? I think I heard the city lord's voice." Captain Don't Shoot had good hearing and could still distinguish who it was. "Really? I think I also heard someone screaming." Blood Red War Flag tilted its ear and said, "Trash, when did I speak to you? Just answer me." Captain Don't Shoot said with disdain. Blood Red War Flag shamelessly said, "If you don't answer me, how do you know I'm answering you? Speaking of which, why is the city lord screaming?" At this time, Big Bear's question interrupted Blood Red War Flag and Captain Don't Shoot's low-level argument. When Captain Don't Shoot heard this, he thought for a moment and said, listening to him scream so miserably, he must have been beaten up. What a joke! Who has the ability to beat the city lord? Blood Red War Flag said disdainfully. Everyone knew that in this world where the strong preyed on the weak, no one would dare to become a city lord without some ability. However, as soon as he said this, Blood Red War Flag suddenly woke up and then took a deep breath. Hiss! Blood Red War Flag and Captain Don't Shoot looked at each other in horror and said in unison, "It can't be him, right?" The him that the two of them were talking about was naturally not anyone else. Looking at the whole of Yu Huiqing and even the whole game, the only person who had the ability to fight with the city lord was that crazy person from Chuanjin. However, no matter how crazy Wang Yu was, he was only a level 45 player. No one thought that Wang Yu would dare to challenge a high-level NPC like the city lord. Chapter 924. Under the cover of the thick smoke, Wang Yu wandered around the city lord. The city lord had heaven-defying attributes, but he had no way to attack Wang Yu. He was like a fish on a chopping board, waiting to be slaughtered by Wang Yu. No one knew what was wrong with Wang Yu today, but he was determined to beat the city lord into a shadow. Every move he made was aimed at the city lord's crotch, and every hit was sure to hit. The city lord screamed as he was beaten by Wang Yu. Every time the players outside the city lord's mansion heard a scream, the fear in their hearts would deepen. Finally, when the city lord's HP fell to 50%, he realized that he couldn't win. If this continued, he would be beaten to a pulp by Wang Yu. Thinking up to this point, the city lord didn't wait for Wang Yu to attack him again, and hurriedly called out, all right, you've passed the trial. System notification. You've passed the city lord's trial and completed the quest, young city lord. Seeing the system notification, Wang Yu finally stopped. The girls also stopped fanning the flames. After the thick smoke dissipated, the figures of Wang Yu and the city lord appeared in the courtyard. Having passed the trial, Wang Yu had a relaxed expression on his face, and was in a good mood. The city lord, on the other hand, was battered and exhausted. With Arya's help, he sat down on a stone bench, took a sip of water from the cup on the table, and said unhappily, "You despicable brats, you made this damned smoke, I really hate it." The girls chuckled, and walked to Wang Yu's side and asked curiously, "Old cow, what did you do to the city lord just now?" Exquisite Dream had guessed the knight's question, but Wang Yu didn't answer it directly. The girls didn't believe that the righteous Wang Yu would do such a thing. Pfft! Before Wang Yu could say anything, the city lord spat out the water in his mouth and said with a sigh, "That damn smoke, I really love and hate it." Wang Yu was speechless. He avoided the topic and asked the city lord, "Then, can we go now?" The city lord waved his hand and said, "Go, go. I admit defeat." As he spoke, the guards at the entrance of the city lord manor returned to their original positions. Wang Yu nodded and led the confused girls out. As soon as they left the backyard, they encountered Blood Red War Flag and Captain Don't Shoot's group. Ox God. Seeing that it was indeed Wang Yu who had caused a commotion in the city lord's mansion just now, the captain was so excited that his tongue was trembling. This was the god who had beaten up the city lord. At this moment, the captain regretted offending Chuanjin even more. Blood Red War Flag also greeted Wang Yu in surprise. "Hey, old cow! Old Chi, captain, boss, what are you guys doing here?" Wang Yu asked politely. "Just strolling around." Blood Red War Flag quickly ran to Wang Yu and asked incredulously, "So it was you inside just now?" "Yes, it was me," Wang Yu said. "What were you doing inside? Making the city lord scream?" Blood Red War Flag asked the question that everyone present wanted to ask. Wang Yu's answer was very general. "I exchanged a few punches with the city lord." You won?" Blood Red War Flag asked in surprise. "I won." Hiss! Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air again. In addition to marveling at Wang Yu's unfathomable strength, everyone was more amazed at Wang Yu's courage. They were both players, but they had been scolded by the NPCs in the city to the point that they were afraid of losing favorability, while the other party had beaten up the city lord. What was the difference? This was called. After sighing, Blood Red War Flag suddenly said seriously, Nyogu, the administrative district's management seal is in your hands, right? Name a price, I want it." "Seal?" Wang Yu heard this and shook his head. "It's not in my hands." At this moment, the city lord's seal was still in Wuji's hands. Wang Yu had not completed the quest, so the two seals were indeed not in Wang Yu's hands. There was nothing wrong with this. If that's the case, then let's talk another day. Blood Red War Flag heard this and hurriedly said something to Wang Yu, then ran to the backyard. Seeing this, Captain Don't Shoot also led his men to chase after them. Strange. Wang Yu scratched his head and left the city lord's mansion. At this time, Wuji also received Wang Yu's message and came to the entrance of the city lord's mansion to trade the city lord's seal to Wang Yu. After Wang Yu and the others received the city lord's seal, they returned to the backyard. Why did you come back?" Seeing Wang Yu suddenly turn around, the players from the two great guilds thought that Wang Yu had reacted and wanted to snatch the seals from them. They immediately became incomparably nervous. "I'm here to turn in the quest," Wang Yu said. "Oh." Seeing that Wang Yu didn't come to find the seals, the two guilds relaxed and continued to search. As Wang Yu spoke, he arrived in front of the city lord and handed the city lord's seal to the city lord. "Well done. From today onwards you are the city lord." The city lord nodded his head in satisfaction and handed the seal back to Wang Yu. System notification. You have obtained Yu Huiqing City Lord's seal. The inheritance conditions have been met. Player Iron Ox has become the 27th City Lord of Yu Huiqing. You have obtained the title, Yu Huiqing City Lord. Yu Huiqing City Lord, title, plus 50 strength, plus 50 agility, plus 50 vitality, plus 50 spirit, plus 50 intelligence. Command the people. Can mobilize all the NPCs in Yu Huiqing. Can also directly issue quests to Yu Huiqing players in the main city. You have obtained experience, you have obtained reputation, you have obtained Yu Huiqing's honor. The experience from this quest was definitely quite good. After a long string of system notifications flashed, Wang Yu's body flashed 3 times and he leveled up 3 times, reaching level 48. At the same time, the system announcement also lit up. System announcement. Year XXXX of the Rebirth Calendar, player Iron Ox has passed the City Lord's trial and become the 27th City Lord of Yu Huiqing. As the first player City Lord, he is the pride of all players. Iron Ox's name will be remembered in the history book. The system announcement appeared 3 times, covering the sky. Seeing the system announcement, Blood Red War Flag, Captain Don't Shoot, and the others almost dropped their weapons. They looked at Wang Yu as if they were dreaming and didn't say anything for a long time. City Lord? Everyone couldn't believe it. While they were still fighting for the management rights of a city, someone actually skipped this stage and became a City Lord. Not bad, Wang Yu said. Now that the City Lord's mansion belongs to me, don't mess around in my private territory. The players who were searching in the courtyard heard Wang Yu's words and hurriedly stopped. What a joke. This guy could beat a high-level NPC like the City Lord to the point of crying for his parents and offering the city to him. How many things could he have to pay for looting in his back garden? Captain Don't Shoot smiled and said, I'm really sorry. If that's the case, we'll go back first. Okay. Wang Yu nodded and pointed to the door. He didn't have the slightest intention of asking them to stay. Swordfinger Sky and the others felt as if they had been pardoned and turned to leave. Blood Red War Flag saw this and wanted to leave as well. At this moment, Wuji, who was beside Wang Yu, stopped him. Old Flag, I have something that I don't know if you like? What is it? Blood Red War Flag turned around. Chapter 925. Yu Huiqing Central Administrative District Seal, Main Unique Item. It represents the highest authority in Yu Huiqing's administrative district. The user will become the administrator of Yu Huiqing's Central Administrative District. User requirement. Yu Huiqing's reputation reaches 500, honor reaches 100, and the title of Yu Huiqing's protector. Seeing the seal in Wang Yu's hands, Blood Red War Flag was so excited that it was speechless. Niu Gu, what do you mean by this? Wang Yu said, Nothing. I just want to sell it. Name a price. You really are my brother. Hearing Wang Yu say this, Blood Red War Flag almost pounced on him. The administrator of the Central Administrative District was second only to the City Lord in Yu Huiqing. He enjoyed the highest treatment and the right to adjust the city's taxes. Although Blood Red War Flag and Captain Don't Shoot had obtained so many seals, almost dividing up the entire Yu Huiqing, all of them added together didn't have as much authority as this seal. Right now, our guild's funds are at most 200,000 gold. Niu Gu, name a specific price. I'll report the difference, Blood Red War Flag said, somewhat embarrassed. Blood Red War Flag wasn't complaining about being poor. After all, Blood Red Alliance wasn't like Finger Heavens, a guild that was made up of rich kids. Compared to Blood Red War Flag, there was still a bit of a difference. 200,000 gold was the highest amount of authority Blood Red War Flag had. It's fine. 200,000 it is, Wang Yu said calmly and threw the seal to Blood Red War Flag. Can I? Blood Red War Flag looked at the seal in its hands in disbelief. blood-red war flag wasn't a noob like Wang Yu. It knew the value of this seal better than Wang Yu. Take it. Wang Yu waved his hand and smiled. Your blood alliance is the backbone of Yu Huiqing. In the future, Yu Huiqing will have to rely on you. Blood-red war flag also knew Chuanjin's temperament. They didn't like to be polite to others, and they wouldn't be polite to others either. If they wanted to scam others, they would do it openly. If they continued to drag this on, these weird-tempered people might change their minds and not even want to sell it. Therefore, they hurriedly said, "All right. Since Nyogu said so, I'll accept it. I'll go raise the money now." Blood-red war flag also left the city lord's mansion, leaving only Wang Yu, Wuji, Yeshu, and the other girls in the yard. Take this seal, Wang Yu said as he watched blood-red war flag leave. He then took out another administrative district seal and handed it to Yeshu. Yeshu and the others had helped a lot just now. Wang Yu was an honest person and knew that he couldn't take all the benefits for himself. "Boss, what do you think?" Yeshu didn't take the seal from Wang Yu's hand. Instead, she turned her head and asked Summer watching Snow. Yeshu naturally knew the value of this seal. They were just setting it on fire. This thing was really too valuable. Summer watching Snow was a big girl, but she was also very reasonable. She knew the principle of not accepting rewards without doing anything. Towards Wang Yu's gift, she smiled and said, "Forget it, our guild is too weak. Even if we have a seal, we might not be able to defend the city. When the time comes, we'll still have to sell it. How about Nyogo, you sell it and give us some of the money?" Summer watching Snow was right. There was a saying that the world belonged to those who were capable. It was the same in the game. Once a guild challenged the guild of the city manager, the final winner would obtain the management right. From this, it could be seen that something like a city wasn't just a seal. One had to have the strength to match it. Because of this, the smaller guilds that found a management seal didn't dare to use it themselves. After all, they had worked so hard for a long time. If they were beaten up by a big guild and taken away, wouldn't that be too cheap? Therefore, the more valuable a city was, the more it was like a hot potato for the smaller guild. This was also why the smaller guilds were selling their seals at such a low price. Otherwise, how could the management rights of a city only be worth 100,000 to 200,000 gold? Summer watching Snow's guild was called Windflower Snow Moon. Just from the name, one could tell what kind of group it was. Even though it had 500 members, the ratio of female players was too high. Most of the male players were infatuated with the female players. Their combat strength probably couldn't even compare to a group from a big guild like Blood Red War Flag. One had to know that the game was a competition. The administrative district was such a big piece of meat. Without sufficient strength, if someone started a guild war against you, you could only surrender. Even if you survived the guild war, there were still city wars and national wars in the later stages of the game. If you didn't have enough strength, you would be defeated sooner or later. The leader said that political power came from the barrel of a gun. That was the truth summed up from experience. All right. Wang Yu had been in the game for so long. Of course, he understood this principle. Since Summer watching Snow said so, Wang Yu could only nod and put the seal away. As the biggest winner of this trial, Chuanjin's reward from the city lord was quite generous. Other than a mansion, Wang Yu also had the right to dispatch guards. In fact, Wang Yu could also dispatch guards in the past. However, Wang Yu had to take the initiative to find the guards. Now that he was successful, the guards were on call. The strength of the guards didn't need to be mentioned. They were all heaven-defying existences. Even though Wang Yu's deployment rights were limited to within the city, it was still quite impressive to order these guys around. In addition, Chuanjin also directly controlled the entire Yu Huiqing's tax collection rights and the authority to adjust the tax rate. Currently, Yu Huiqing had nearly 400,000 people. The daily consumption was astronomical. Even though most of the tax money had to be invested into the maintenance of the main city and the guards' salaries, Chuanzhen still had an extra income. It was basically equivalent to paid work. However, the role of the city lord wasn't to make money. It was to serve the people and solve problems for the people of Yuhuiqing. With so many NPCs in Yuhuiqing, there were countless trivial quests. The former NPC city lord didn't leave the city, so he could help the player city lord issue those trivial quests. As for the player city lord, he had to take on the responsibility of protecting the city. It wasn't easy to be a city lord, not to mention the fact that guilds in the same city coveted the position of city lord. Other cities could also launch attacks at any time. There were internal and external troubles. If the city was lost, it wouldn't be as simple as losing the city. Of course, Chuanzhen still had a lot of influence in Yuhuiqing. There were no internal troubles for the time being. As for external troubles, Yuhuiqing was the only player city in the entire game. The NPC city lord wouldn't take the initiative to attack a main city with a city lord. Therefore, Chuanzhen could still be free for a period of time. Chapter 926. On Yuhuiqing's side, Chuanzhen's people were calm. Taking down the main city was just a surprise. After the novelty wore off, they went back to doing what they were supposed to do. Even Wang Yu, the city lord, had run away. At this time, the forums in the game were once again in an uproar. City lord! Everyone hadn't even confirmed the management of the city, and someone had already taken the position of city lord. This was simply unbelievable. Iron Ox, it's that Iron Ox again. Isn't he from Chuanzhen? Ever since the game opened, Wang Yu had been on the game announcements many times. Those who were slightly familiar with him would know which guild he was from. Chuanzhen was a notorious guild in the gaming circle. They had always been small in numbers, and it was common knowledge that they didn't have many members. If a player from a famous guild like Blood Alliance took the position of city lord, it would be reasonable. However, for a player from such a small guild to take the position of city lord, even if everyone knew that Wang Yu was an expert, it was still unbelievable. After all, a man's wealth was his own ruin. The concept of the weak being prey to the strong was more realistic in the game. A small guild dared to become a city lord. Wasn't that just sending food to the enemy? Therefore, there were all sorts of voices on the forums. Some said that Chuanzhen had a backer, some said that Chuanzhen didn't know what was good for them, and some people with bad intentions said that they wanted to go to Yuhuiqing and take down Chuanzhen. Of course, these were all keyboard warriors. They were only good at the keyboard. If they really had the ability to do such a thing, they definitely wouldn't spread it around. The forums all treated Yuhuiqing as an imaginary enemy. At this time, Yuhuiqing's city lord, Wang Yu, was strolling in front of the blacksmith's shop. In the eyes of the other guilds, Chuanzhen was just a small group. In the eyes of Yuhuiqing's players, they were the true leader of Yuhuiqing. Not long ago, the little blacksmith chopper 345 had been dragged away by the Chuanzhen sect. This news had already spread like wildfire in Yuhui City, and as a result, the blacksmith profession had once again become popular. The blacksmith shop's business was even more prosperous than before. At this time, the entire blacksmith shop was filled with people inside and outside the shop. They were all ordinary blacksmiths who wanted to make a name for themselves. Wang Yu was the #1 celebrity in Yuhuiqing, especially in the blacksmith shop. These grassroots blacksmiths who were permanently stationed in the blacksmith's shop could not be more familiar with him. Seeing Wang Yu coming over, everyone made way for Wang Yu from afar. Nyogo is here again. Is he going to forge another divine artifact? You can use my stall. I'll be your assistant. Does our Chuanzhen still lack blacksmiths? A series of greetings could be heard everywhere. They were all people who wanted to work for Chuanzhen. What they didn't know was that the reason Chopper 345 was chosen by Wang Yu was because of his outstanding skills, and nothing else. Wang Yu tactfully declined and said, Thank you everyone, but I'm not forging anything today. I'm here to do a quest. What quest? Let's help. Experts were always welcomed, especially experts like Wang Yu. Seeing that Wang Yu had such a good temper, everyone expressed their willingness to help with the quest. No. Wang Yu wiped the sweat off his forehead. There was a saying that good news doesn't leave the house, but bad news travels 1,000 miles. This quest was related to the former city lord's dirty laundry. Wang Yu wasn't a big mouth, so how could he go around announcing that the city lord was NTR'd? After squeezing through the crowd, Wang Yu arrived in front of Simba. Simba was still in his half-dead state. People who had lost their will all looked like this. Hey teacher! Wang Yu took the initiative to greet him. Simba looked up and saw that it was Wang Yu standing in front of him. He asked, "Oh, it's you. Did you bring alcohol?" Wang Yu was stunned. Did NPCs in the system now take the initiative to ask for bribes? It seemed like there were too many young people who didn't know any better, causing the intelligence of NPCs to increase. Times really were advancing. I don't have any alcohol left, but you have to treat me, Wang Yu said smugly. Simba didn't even look at Wang Yu this time. He curled his lips and said, "Cut the crap. If there's no alcohol, let's." "Isn't this the envelope I gave to Arya? Why is it in your hands?" Before Simba could finish speaking, Wang Yu took out the envelope Arya gave him and waved it in front of Simba. Simba couldn't help but cry out when he saw the envelope. Wow, this envelope was actually a love letter from old man Simba to the city lord's wife. Looking at the letter, this old blacksmith was also a man of few words. Wang Yu chuckled and said, I helped you take revenge and pushed your love rival out of the city lord's position. Shouldn't you give me a reward? Simba huffed and said disdainfully, Bullsh *T. What does it have to do with me being the city lord? If that's the case, I'm going back. Wang Yu kept the envelope and stood up to leave. Seeing that Wang Yu was about to leave, Simba hurriedly hugged Wang Yu's leg and said, Hey, don't go. Tell me, what reward do you want? Wang Yu smiled and said, How about I raise my alchemy to the highest level? That should be within your capabilities. Magic refinement was a hidden subclass skill. Apart from the quests given by their mentors, they also needed to find ancient notes and other items to level up. These items were hard to come by. If they didn't take advantage of this opportunity to get their hands on the rewards, who knew when they would be able to reach the peak of this subclass? About that, the system has rules. I can't just give it to anyone. Then I'll be leaving. Wang Yu stood up again. Simba hurriedly said, Don't worry, as long as there's a quest, I'll give you the reward you want. As expected of an intelligent NPC, the rewards in his hands were freely distributed. Wang Yu also understood the principle that the heavens, system, were watching what the NPC was doing. Principles couldn't be forced. Since Simba had already said so, Wang Yu naturally wouldn't stubbornly pester him. Alright, since we're on good terms, I'll do it. Wang Yu smiled and handed the letter to Simba. Little bastard. Just you wait. Simba took the letter and immediately changed his expression. He glared at Wang Yu fiercely, then carefully took out Arya's letter from the envelope and read it. Unexpectedly, as he looked, Simba's eyes turned red, and tears flowed down his dirty cheeks. Are these tears of happiness? Wang Yu sighed. However, Simba's expression was ferocious and his hands were trembling. It didn't look like he was happy. Wang Yu was curious about the contents of the letter. Could it be that the city lord was being abused? Or was it because he was middle-aged? Just as Wang Yu's thoughts were running wild, Simba finally finished reading the letter. Simba angrily rolled the letter into a ball and wanted to throw it, but he didn't do it in the end. What's written on it? Wang Yu finally couldn't hold back his curiosity and asked. Simba casually threw the letter to Wang Yu and said, Read it yourself. When Wang Yu heard this, he quickly opened the letter. Yes, oh. Wang Yu pretended to stare at it for a few seconds and said, I don't know these words. Simba looked at Wang Yu speechlessly. He waved his rough hand on the letter and the strange words on the letter turned into Chinese characters. Chapter 9:27. That's a bit too much. After reading Arya's letter, Wang Yu looked at Simba in surprise and said sympathetically. Uncle Nyo didn't elaborate on the content of Arya's letter in order to avoid being criticized. After all, none of them had a girlfriend, and some abusive words could easily cause discomfort. However, the general content of the letter could be summarized into the following point. 1. Arya and the City Lord are very loving. It meant that Simba shouldn't overthink it. 2. Simba is a good person. Give him a good person card first. 3. The City Lord has been serving the people all year round and has no heart to cultivate, so she hasn't broken through the limits of her profession. She hopes to borrow Simba's craftsmanship god's soul to raise her realm. 4. Simba is a good person, he will definitely help. Give him another good person card. Wang Yu thought that the City Lord's wife would have an affair with Simba, but he didn't expect her to do this. Not only did she flaunt her love, she even did it in Simba's face, and even asked Simba for help. Wasn't this blatant mockery? No wonder Simba had such an expression. As an outsider, Wang Yu couldn't stand it anymore and was full of sympathy for Simba. Sigh. Simba shook his head and said, if she wasn't forced, she wouldn't have asked me. After all, there aren't many people in this world who have the craftsmanship god's soul. Oh, no wonder. Wang Yu nodded and asked, what is the craftsmanship god's soul? Simba said, it's the power of a god. With the craftsmanship god's soul, I am a true craftsmanship god. Not only can this power increase the realm of blacksmithing, it can also increase the realm of the profession. Willie is currently at the peak of human professions. If he has the craftsmanship god's soul, he will be even more powerful. If you give this to him, what will you do? Wang Yu asked. The craftsmanship god's soul is my godhead. Without it, I am no longer the craftsmanship god. Simba said calmly. Wang Yu was shocked again. Doesn't that mean she wants to use your godhead to increase her husband's realm? This is too much. In order to help a person, he wanted to destroy a person. This kind of behavior was simply abominable. It was true that Simba was a spare tire, but he couldn't treat a spare tire as a person. Don't say that. Who told me to promise her before? Simba smiled bitterly and said, it's a pity. I really want to help, but my craftsman god's soul has long been lost. Disappointed. For some reason, Wang Yu actually felt a little relieved. That's right. Look at me. Can I even lift a hammer? I'm just an old drunkard with an undeserved reputation. Simba's words were full of sorrow. This old fellow was truly pitiful. Because of the woman's setback, she had even lost her divinity. Now, for the sake of her husband, the goddess was begging Simba to borrow the craftsman god's soul that he had lost a long time ago. This could also be considered karma. Of course, a woman was definitely not an excuse for a man to fall into depravity. Simba's behavior might not be entirely because of Arya. If you're disappointed, then so be it. Wang Yu stood up, feeling as if a heavy burden had been lifted from his heart. As the saying goes, a pitiful person must have a hateful side. Arya's behavior of sacrificing a person who loved her for her husband was something that Wang Yu despised. It was good that he could not continue with the quest. At least, Wang Yu's psychological burden would lessen a little. However, just as Wang Yu was about to leave, Simba suddenly said, "Do me a favor. What can I help you with? Are you going to reject sending her a letter?" Wang Yu asked in confusion. Simba said, "Forget about the letter. Can you help me find my lost craftsman god's soul and send it to her?" System notification. You have triggered the second phase of the hidden quest, Arya's Worries, Old Blacksmith's Wish. Do you wish to accept? F***CK. You can't be that useless, right? Wang Yu saw the system notification and could not help but say, Wang Yu really couldn't imagine what was in Simba's mind. How could he be willing to squander everything for someone who didn't want him but wanted him? Simba shook his head and sighed. I can't help it. Who asked me to owe her? Just do me this favor. I live my life for her. If she's not happy, okay. No matter what, Simba was a boorish man. Hearing such pretentious words coming out of his mouth, Wang Yu only felt a gust of cold wind behind her. She hurriedly interrupted Simba's whining and helplessly said, I promise you. After saying that, Wang Yu accepted the quest. System notification. You have accepted the second phase of the hidden quest, Arya's Worries, Old Blacksmith's Wish. Quest rank, S. Quest background. Arya is the person Simba has always admired. Simba is willing to go through fire and water for her. Arya's husband, Willy, is a famous expert. He is also the most promising person to break through the limits of the human profession. However, when Willy was young, he fought with others and damaged his foundation. If he wants to break through the limits, he needs external help. It is said that the spirit of the craftsman god can be used to increase his realm. Quest requirement. Find the spirit of the craftsman god for Arya 0 of 1 inch. Looking at this mission notification, Wang Yu's heart was filled with displeasure. Unfortunately, Simba's spare tire had been prepared. Wang Yu was, after all, Simba's successor. No matter how displeased he was, he had to fulfill the old man's wish. Not to mention there was a reward. By the way, where did you drop the spirit of the craftsman god? Wang Yu asked. The spirit of the craftsman god sounded like an illusory thing. The world of rebirth was so big. Finding it was like looking for a needle in a haystack. I don't know either. I asked you to look for it because of your ability. Simba shook his head. If he knew, would he need someone else's help? You don't even give me a clue. How am I supposed to find it for you? Wang Yu pursed his lips and held back his vulgarities. He really wanted to cancel the quest. Do you have the heart to disappoint a widower like me? Simba's face was filled with sorrow. Forget it. Don't flatter yourself. You're just a single old dog. Wang Yu said disdainfully. Although he said that, looking at Simba's pitiful look, and thinking about the quest reward, Wang Yu could not bear to cancel the quest in the end. I'll just treat it as filial piety for this old bachelor. After all, I'm the only disciple of this old bachelor. That was what Wang Yu thought. All right, I'll think of a way myself. However, I have to correct something you said. Wang Yu stared at old Simba and said. Simba said blankly, What is it? Wang Yu acted like a Casanova and said, I don't know if an NPC like you can understand it. However, I have to tell you that you don't owe Arya anything. On the contrary, she owes you quite a lot. After acting cool, Wang Yu ignored the confused Simba and ran out of the blacksmith shop. Yup, running after acting cool. This was Wang Yu's usual style. Chapter 928. Running out of the smithy, Wang Yu immediately felt depressed again. The world was so big, where could he find Simba's god of craftsmanship soul? Damn it, Simba didn't even know how he became useless. He had no clue at all. While he was in a dilemma, Wang Yu came to the alley opposite the smithy. What am I doing here? Wang Yu looked up. Isn't this Old Man Hermit's territory? Wang Yu was hesitating if he should greet Old Man Hermit, but Old Man Hermit came uninvited and rolled to Wang Yu's feet like a dead dog. Wine, do you have wine? Old Man Hermit's face was pale. He stretched out his trembling hand and asked. What's going on? This designer definitely has a grudge against old people, all of them are like this, Wang Yu muttered, took out a bottle of wine from his bag, and gave Hermit a big gulp. Io, it's you, why do you want to see this old man? When Hermit saw that the person in front of him was Wang Yu, he chuckled, wiped his mouth with his dirty sleeve, and asked longingly. Teacher, you are also a grandmaster, why are you like this every day? Wang Yu asked angrily. Could it be that Old Man Hermit was also a heartbroken person like Simba? Hearing Wang Yu's words, Hermit raised his eyebrows and said unhappily, "You're still a kid, how dare you ask about me? Don't tell me. Do you want to drink?" Wang Yu squinted his eyes and shook the wine bottle in his hand. "Yes." Old man Hermit immediately compromised. Wang Yu put the wine bottle on the ground and said, "I have wine, do you have a story?" "There are stories, but you can't ask about me," Hermit said cautiously. Okay. I don't mind knowing about your trivial matters." Wang Yu pointed to the blacksmith shop opposite and said, "Old Simba is very familiar with you, right?" In fact, Wang Yu knew that these two old men were drinking buddies. "Yes, it's all right." Hermit nodded. "Tell me, when did he lose the craftsman god's soul?" Wang Yu asked. Hermit picked up the bottle and took a big gulp. "Godhood is a very noble thing. Only the bravest and strongest warriors deserve it. Look at old Simba. Of course, he didn't get it when he was at his most decadent." "When did he become decadent?" Wang Yu asked again. As soon as Wang Yu said this, Hermit's eyes suddenly became deep. He hugged the bottle and said thoughtfully, "Men will only become decadent when they are in the most pain and sadness." "Oh? So you have been in pain and sadness before?" Wang Yu began to stray from the topic. "It's a long story. Back then Kid, didn't you say you wouldn't ask about me?" Hermit was about to say something, but he immediately reacted. Wang Yu laughed and said, "Don't mind these details. Speaking of which, when was Simba the most sad?" Hermit curled his lips and said, "You can ask him. He didn't tell me. But looking at his behavior, you should know that it must be because of a girl. That good for nothing." This old man is still the pot calling the kettle black. I really don't know what right he has to laugh at others. Wang Yu thought he could get something out of Hermit, who knew that after chatting for a while, he realized that Hermit and Simba were just pure drinking buddies. He also didn't know much about Simba. In the end, other than asking about the nonsense that men tend to become decadent when they are sad, he knew nothing else. Helpless, Wang Yu threw 2 bottles of wine to Hermit and walked out of the alley. He tried his best and asked in the Chuanjian channel, "If you guys encountered a relationship problem, when would you be the most sad?" I don't have a girlfriend." Sure enough, this was the Chuanjian sect's unique style. This group of animals were always showing off their superiority. "What about Brother Chun? Aren't you married?" Chun Xiang. Wang Yu circled Chun Xiang. Chun Xiang said proudly, "How could I have a relationship problem? My wife kneels when she gets angry." "That bad *SS? Wang Yu was shocked. He didn't expect Chun Xiang to be so arrogant at home. "Of course, my kneeling skills are not for show." However, the next sentence revealed Chun Xiang's true nature. Wang Yu was stunned by Chun Xiang's unique style. Wuji tried to stir up trouble. "Qingxue, didn't you have an affair with old cow in the past? Why don't you say something? Do you want to die?" Yang Na sent a murderous emoji in the channel. Wuji chuckled and disappeared. At that moment, Mu Zixin, who hadn't spoken much in the channel, suddenly said, "I think if I were to be sad, it would be when you get married to someone else. I think I would be in despair at that time." "That's right. Sister Nyo is right." Bao San suddenly chimed in. "What are you talking about? We'll never be separated. I love you so much." Wang Yu heard Mu Zixin say that and shuddered. He began to shamelessly show off in the group. *CK off you too. Seeing this, Wu Ji did not hesitate to mute the 2 of them, returning peace to everyone. Although he was muted by Wu Ji, Wang Yu had a clue because of Mu Zixin's words. It seemed that Simba's depression had something to do with Arya's marriage. Thinking about this, Wang Yu quickly ran to the mayor's manor. Willie was working in the main hall of the mayor's manor, but his title had changed to acting mayor. Ignoring Willie, who was busy helping her, Wang Yu ran to the backyard. She found Aaliyah, who was sitting there in a daze, and asked, "Did you tell Simba when you got married?" "Why are you asking?" Arya asked cautiously. Do you think I want to ask? Wang Yu didn't give Ai Leah any face either. In any case, he was very against this mission that had a wrong view of the world. I did. Arya said calmly. He went to the wedding too. I clearly remember Simba sitting in the corner, crying his heart out. He even got drunk in the end. I've let him down. Although Arya said she was sorry, her tone did not sound apologetic at all. Instead, she sounded proud. This made Wang Yu a little angry. It's good that you know you've let him down. Wang Yu looked at Ai Leah with disdain, then asked, where was the wedding held back then? The City of Hope. Arya's face was filled with happiness. As soon as Arya finished speaking, Wang Yu received a quest change notification. Quest changed. Beauties are often fickle. Heroes fall for the charms of beauties. The noble godhood will naturally not follow a useless person with no ambition. In the City of Hope, God of Crafts Simba has become immortal. Quest objective. Go to the City of Hope and find Simba's God of Crafts soul. As expected, Simba's decadence was directly related to Arya. He really did not know what this woman was thinking. Why did she invite Simba to her wedding? Was it to make Simba give up? Or was it because Simba was a spare tire? Was she pitying him? Could it be because of the gift money? Wang Yu was filled with disgust as he walked out of the city lord residence unhappily. To be honest, Wang Yu had never hated a quest as much as he did now. At first, when he was delivering Arya's letter, Wang Yu was only instinctively against it. Now, he was obviously unhappy and wanted to give up on the quest. However, thinking about how difficult it was for Simba to be a spare tire, Wang Yu could only suppress his thoughts. Chapter 929. The City of Hope was a city of light located at the border between the Dark faction and the Light faction. It was said that at the end of the War of Gods and Demons, the allied forces of the Light faction and the Neutral faction achieved a great victory here and saw the hope of victory. Hence, it was named the City of Hope, also known as the Chosen City. Because of this story, in addition to the pleasant scenery of the City of Hope, and the largest church other than Holy Light City, the Church of Dawn, this was also the first choice for many players and NPCs to get married. The layout of this main city was also very interesting. The entire city was built around a mountain. In the center of the main city was a mountain called Hope Peak. In the game's background, it was called the Pillar of Hope and was the symbol of the City of Hope. As soon as he arrived at the City of Hope, Wang Yu stood at the port of Hope Peak and looked down. Seeing the beautiful scenery here, he suddenly felt refreshed. The little unhappiness in his heart quickly dissipated, and his mind was filled with thoughts of coming here when he held his wedding. Just as Wang Yu's mind was filled with coquettish thoughts, suddenly a rough voice came from not far away. "Hey, who's that? You're leaving just like that? Pay up, you know." Wang Yu looked in the direction of the noise and saw 5 fully armed players surrounding a male player fiercely. The players surrounding him were obviously not low-level based on their equipment. All 5 of them had a guild badge with a wolf head on their chest. These days, players were basically vulgar, thinking that hanging an animal would be more domineering. The surrounded player was a little thin and looked young. His equipment was also a mess. There were all kinds of chain armor, cloth armor, plate armor, and leather armor. He was dressed like a standard fighter. Pay up? Why do I have to pay up? The thin fighter was a little unconvinced. The game system had already collected card money. What right did the players have to ask for money? Nonsense. A warrior among the surrounding players said, "Don't tell me you don't know. This tourist area is the territory of our Mad Wolf Guild. Were you standing here and looking at it just now? Hurry up and pay a gold coin for the entrance fee." Meow. So it turned out to be a group of people who surrounded the tourist area. I didn't expect such an industry to exist in the game. As a foreigner, Wang Yu was really ignorant. However, based on how proficient the Mad Wolf players were, it was clear that they were professionals in the real world. The Grandmaster of Combat also knew that he had met an unreasonable person. With a face full of grievance, he said, "No one told me to collect money before this. Nonsense. How are we going to make money if I tell you? Hurry up, or we'll throw you down." The Mad Wolf players said eagerly. They didn't seem to be faking it. Although there was no sense of pain in the game, the height here was so high that a normal person would probably be scared out of their wits if they were thrown down here. As long as they hadn't just come out of the beginner's zone, most people would have a few gold coins on them. No one would be willing to experience the cycle of life and death for such a small amount of money. The Grand Master of Combat shuddered at his words, and reached for his pocket with trembling hands. Seeing the Grand Master of Combat's pale face, Wang Yu could not help but ask, "Aren't you afraid of being reported?" No matter how much of a bastard the people of Chuanjin were, they earned their money with their own abilities. No one had ever done such a heartless thing. Hee, sticking out like a sore thumb? I dare you to report us. The leading warrior from Mad Wolf turned his head and laughed fearfully at Wuji. He looked at everyone around him with disdain. This was the port area, and there were many people coming and going. However, everyone seemed to know what kind of people Mad Wolf was. Seeing them bullying someone, they didn't even watch the show. Forget it, 1 gold coin it is. I can't afford to offend people like you, can't I? The Grand Master of Combat saw that the Mad Wolf players wanted to make things difficult for Wang Yu, so he quickly took out a gold coin and handed it over. Hee. The leading warrior laughed, took the gold coin, and said to the Grand Master of Combat, "You can leave now." The Grand Master of Combat quickly walked to Wang Yu's side and pulled Wang Yu, saying, "Brother, let's go, don't bother with them." Okay. Wang Yu didn't want to get involved. Seeing that the Grand Master of Combat was fine, he responded and turned to leave. Unexpectedly, the warrior pointed at Wang Yu and said, "Wait, weren't you looking at it from a distance? Pay up." Wang Yu stopped and turned his head, saying, "Yeah, the scenery is not bad. It's just that it's been polluted and didn't meet my expectations, so I don't want to waste money." "Is that so?" The leading warrior was stunned. He quickly looked around and scolded, "Who the hell dares to mess up our Mad Wolf scenic area? You think you have too much money?" What an honest guy! Wang Yu was stunned. One of the warrior's lackeys tugged at his shirt and said, "Boss, he's calling us trash." "You dare to call me that?" The warrior finally reacted and glared angrily. Wang Yu scratched his head, ignored the warrior's roar, and turned to leave. F***CK. Are you looking down on me? Being ignored by Wang Yu, the warrior's anger rushed to his head. He kept his sword behind him, lowered his head and charged at Wang Yu. "Brother, be careful." Seeing this, the Grand Master of Combat was shocked and hurriedly warned Wang Yu. Wang Yu didn't even turn his head. He slightly tilted his body and dodged the warrior's charge. He then moved his right hand to the side and changed the direction of the warrior's charge. Finally, he pushed hard on the warrior's butt, and the warrior couldn't help but fall to the side. This was the peak of the mountain, and beside Wang Yu was a cliff. Then there was a scream, and the warrior lost his footing and fell down. "You!" Seeing Wang Yu push the soldier down with just a raise of her hand, everyone was dumbfounded. "Why did you fight him?" The Grand Master of Combat was scared to the point his face turned pale. "Do you know who he is?" "I don't know," Wang Yu said. "Brother, you're in trouble. That's someone from the Mad Wolf Guild." To be honest, the warrior's skills were average. Most people could easily take care of that kind of trash. However, this guy's background was not ordinary. Otherwise, the Grand Master of Combat wouldn't have paid the money immediately after hearing his guild's name. "I know. I heard it from him just now." Wang Yu's answer was still indifferent. "Is this your first time in Hope City?" Seeing that Wang Yu's calm expression was not an act, the Grand Master of Combat frowned and asked. Wang Yu nodded. "Yes." Sigh. The Grand Master of Combat sighed. "Go back before they come looking for you. Otherwise, you won't be able to leave even if you want to." "Go back where?" Wang Yu was confused. The Grandmaster of Combat said, "Go back to where you came from." "Nonsense." Wang Yu waved his hand and said, "I haven't finished my mission yet. Why would I leave?" As he said that, Wang Yu walked down the mountain. Ouch. I don't care. Seeing how stubborn Wang Yu was, the Grandmaster of Combat was afraid that he would get into trouble. He could only put some distance between him and Wang Yu. Seeing that Wang Yu was about to leave, the remaining Mad Wolf Guild players did not dare to stop him. They pointed at Wang Yu from afar and shouted, "You want to leave after causing trouble? Do you dare to tell us your name?" Chapter 930. Oh! Wang Yu turned around and said, "What? You still want revenge, don't you? Believe it or not, I'll throw you guys down as well." The reason why Wang Yu didn't tell them his name wasn't because he was afraid of revenge, but because he was afraid of trouble. Think about it, he was doing a quest here, and there was a bunch of people chasing after him. How annoying would that be? Hearing Wang Yu's words, those people were so scared that they quickly took a few steps back. Their strength was not as good as the warrior that Wang Yu threw down the mountain. If Wang Yu could throw the warrior down the mountain, then what he said was not just for show. Seeing that the four of them didn't dare to say anything else, Wang Yu walked down the mountain on his own. At this time, the Grandmaster of Combat followed him again. You're lucky you didn't say who you are, or else you'd be dead," the Grandmaster of Combat said happily. "Are their guilds very powerful?" Wang Yu asked symbolically. "Of course," the Grandmaster of Combat said. "Do you know to move unhindered?" Wang Yu heard that and was shocked. Wasn't that obvious? To move unhindered was not the guild of evildoers run wild. Could it be that this Mad Wolf Guild was one of the guilds that to move unhindered? Originally, Wang Yu didn't think that way, but the more he thought about it, the more he felt that the style of this Mad Wolf Guild was quite similar to move unhindered. To move unhindered to encircle the mines and ask for money was very similar to this group of people encircling the tourist area and asking for money. If that was the case, then it would be very awkward. To move unhindered, what does this Mad Wolf Guild have to do with this? Wang Yu frowned and asked tentatively. The Grandmaster of Combat sighed and said, "You're a foreigner, so you might not know, but Mad Wolf Guild is one of the guilds that to move unhindered." "So what?" Wang Yu furrowed his brows, feeling slightly displeased in his heart. Although Unhindered was not his guild, Rampage the evildoer was his brother. To think that a branch of his guild would act so arrogantly. It seemed that the boss of the guild was a little out of line. Wang Yu's disdainful tone surprised and angered the Grandmaster of Combat. "So what? Brother, you seem pretty skilled. Don't tell me you've even heard of Unhindered? That's the #1 guild in the game, and all 300 main cities belong to them. Now that you've offended Unhindered, no matter how capable you are, you won't be able to survive." The Grandmaster of Combat was right. After offending other guilds, they could always switch to another main city and continue playing. After all, a guild's control area was limited to one main city. However, Unhindered the world was different. Their chambers of commerce could be found in all 300 major cities. Offending Unhindered the world was equivalent to giving up on the game. Alright. Wang Yu did not expect evildoers run wild to be so overboard. He said helplessly, "I'll go teach their boss a lesson when I have time, and let him control his underlings." "Are you kidding me?" Hearing Wang Yu's words, the Grandmaster of Combat laughed out loud. "You think you can educate the boss of reigning the world?" The Grandmaster of Combat looked at Wang Yu as if he was looking at a lunatic. As the boss of Unhindered the world, the evildoer Heng Xing's status was naturally not ordinary. Wang Yu had spoken in such a relaxed manner, as if she was a random person who had popped up from the side of the road and said that she would take some time to discuss arms business with Trump. Her tone was undeniably suspicious, and it was normal for a Grandmaster of Combat to have such an expression. What's wrong?" Wang Yu did not take the Grandmaster of Combat's suspicion seriously. Teaching evildoers run wild a lesson was Wang Yu's only pleasure since he was young. The Grandmaster of Combat mocked, "Do you know how powerful their boss, evildoers run wild, is? I heard that even the bosses of the top 10 guilds in China have to be polite when they see him, and you still want to teach him a lesson? This kid is so powerful now?" Wang Yu touched his nose in surprise. The Grandmaster of Combat saw Wang Yu's expression and thought that Wang Yu was afraid. He quickly changed the topic and said, "All right, since you stood up for me just now, I've said what I needed to say. If you insist on biting off more than you can chew, I can't do anything about it. You're an outsider and you're not familiar with this place, so it's best not to cause trouble. If there's anything you don't know, just ask me. I'm Little Bookworm. What's your name?" "Iron Ox," Wang Yu replied casually. Little Bookworm scratched his head and mumbled, "This name sounds familiar. Come, let's add each other as friends." You're adding friends? Do you really think you're a pro?" "I'm used to it." Wang Yu smiled and added Little Bookworm as a friend. "Your class is also a Grandmaster of Combat?" After Little Bookworm added Wang Yu, he looked at Wang Yu's class icon curiously. He had never seen a class icon like the yin-yang fish, but looking at Wang Yu's attire, he looked 90% like a Grandmaster of Combat. "Yes, Grandmaster of Combat is a hidden class, I guess." Wang Yu nodded. Little Bookworm heard it and said, So it's a hidden class. I'm a walker, so I don't know much about gaming classes. But there's nothing I don't know about Hope City." "Oh, so you're a walker." Wang Yu knew about walkers. There were many players in the game, and they all had different hobbies. Some liked to rule the world, Blood Alliance. Some liked to fight and kill, most players. Some liked to do business, evildoers run wild. And some liked to go sightseeing and experience the game's culture and geography. They then combined it with the game's background to create the game's backstory. These people were called walkers. These people were mostly thieves, archers, and grandmasters of combat. After all, people like them didn't need to be good at fighting, but they needed to be able to run and jump. Although most of the walker players were trash, they definitely couldn't be underestimated. This was because the backstory of every game was actually just a scattered framework. With the help of these strange walkers, all of the backstory would be pieced together into a complete epic story. After these stories were compiled, they would be submitted to the planning section of the forum. It was highly likely that the game designers would add some of the details of their stories into the game when they updated the game. In some ways, the walkers could also be considered as the creators of the game world. Of course, the stories that could catch the attention of the game designers were all carefully selected, but to write a good story, one had to have a deep understanding of every backstory in the game. Therefore, being familiar with the culture and customs of the city was a compulsory course for every walker. And Little Bookworm was not just bragging when he said that he was familiar with the culture and customs of the city. Are you here to do a quest?" Little Bookworm asked. "Yes, I'm looking for the lost soul of the god of craftsmen. Do you know where in Hope City I can find some clues?" Wang Yu said as he shared his quest. "Soul of the god of craftsmen?" Little Bookworm looked at Wang Yu's quest and said, "I've never heard of such a thing." That's a pity. Looks like I'll have to find it myself." Wang Yu sounded a little disappointed. But Little Bookworm thought for a while and said, "Since the soul of the god of craftsmen can raise one's level, I've heard of such a thing in Hope City." Chapter 931. Could it be because of the soul of the god of crafts? Wang Yu asked in surprise. "I'm not sure," the Bookworm said. "But according to the library's records, that NPC was just an ordinary night guard. I don't know how he became the leader of the Church of Dawn's Templars. I'm guessing he must have risen in power." "That's right." "Damn, you guessed?" Wang Yu was dumbfounded by the Bookworm's reasoning. Quests were so rigorous, and he was guessing? The Bookworm laughed proudly. "Hee, you don't understand. In our line of work, we rely on our imagination." "Fine. I'll look for the clues myself. Wang Yu was speechless. You can say whatever you want, but you can't just kill a boss. Quests like this required reasonable analysis and rigorous verification. If the bookworm had suspected him because the leader of the Holy Knights had increased his level, Wang Yu would have accepted it. But the bookworm suspected him because of his promotion. That was bullsh*t. Messing with a boss without any evidence wasn't something a normal person would do. You don't believe me? I'm one of the top 10 writers in the planning section. The bookworm was unhappy with Wang Yu's behavior. I believe you, Wang Yu said. Oh right, how do I get to the library? The bookworm was speechless. Although Hope Peak had the title of Pillar of Hope, it wasn't very tall. After all, it was a landmark in the center of the main city. It wasn't practical for it to be too big. Wang Yu and the bookworm chatted as they hurried along. Soon, they arrived at the foot of the mountain. The foot of the mountain was blocked by a group of people. Passing players had to be checked one by one. Is this part of Hope City's customs? Wang Yu asked curiously as he looked at the numb players being checked back and forth. There wasn't anyone here before. The bookworm looked at the crowd in confusion. He tugged at Wang Yu's shirt. They're probably trying to catch you. As she spoke, Wang Yu pointed at the chest of the player blocking the way. Wang Yu followed the direction of the bookworm's finger, and saw that there was a wolf's head emblazoned on their chests. The man that Wang Yu had pushed down the mountain was among them, looking for something. Damn, is it worth it for a gold coin? Seeing this, Wang Yu was really helpless. In the end, it was all because of a single gold coin. He didn't expect this guy to be so ruthless. He actually found people to block the road. Didn't he find it troublesome? The bookworm curled his lip. What do you mean by one gold coin? You're slapping them in the face again. The Mad Wolf Association has been collecting fees for a long time. Not only did you not pay up, but you also threw them off the mountain. Do you think they'll forgive you? Let's not go down the mountain. I advise you to go back. That won't do. I haven't finished my mission yet. Wang Yu shook his head. But now the road is blocked. What are you going to do? Wang Yu said indifferently, wouldn't it be over if we just killed them? Her tone was clearly no different from killing intent. The bookworm looked at the players blocking the road, then back at Wang Yu. He gulped, and once again distanced himself from Wang Yu. Then he sent a private message to Wang Yu. Don't tell them you know me. I still want to mingle around here. There are nearly 20 players of all classes. You're just a grandmaster of combat, and you dare say you can kill them all? Have you lost your mind? While the bookworm was still in shock, Wang Yu had already walked up to the Mad Wolf players. By the time the bookworm reacted, Wang Yu was already in front of the Mad Wolf players. Damn, this guy's crazy. Seeing that Wang Yu didn't know what was good for him, the bookworm cursed under his breath. He quickly hid to the side and observed from the shadows. It's him, Jackal. It's him. At this time, the guy who had been pushed down the mountain by Wang Yu also saw Wang Yu. He pointed at Wang Yu and shouted. At the same time, the Mad Wolf players quickly surrounded Wang Yu, as if they were afraid that Wang Yu would run away. You're the one who beat up our Mad Wolf brothers on the mountain? The leader of the group, who was even bigger than Wang Yu, asked in a muffled voice, raising his chin at Wang Yu. The big guy's equipment was quite good. Apart from the standard silver-grade weapon and armor, the rest of his equipment was gold-grade. This was the standard equipment of an expert. A person with such equipment was definitely not weak. Wang Yu looked at the big guy and said calmly, "It's me." "Good, let's do it." It seemed that the big guy had only asked for the name to show off. He didn't even ask for the reason. With a swing of his sword, he slashed at Wang Yu's neck. The others followed suit, attacking Wang Yu. System notification. Player, nonsenses, party has launched an attack on you. You have 180 seconds to defend yourself. Enemies killed during this period will not count towards your PK point. Seeing the system notification, Wang Yu smiled. He moved to the side to avoid Nonsense's attack. At the same time, he took a step forward, arriving at Nonsense's side. Wang Yu stretched out his arms and grabbed Nonsense's belt and shoulders. Immediately after, Wang Yu twisted his legs and turned to the right with Nonsense in his hand. The attacks of the Mad Wolf players fell upon Nonsense. Wang Yu didn't know whether it was due to Nonsense's endurance or the fact that the Mad Wolf players were trash, but after this wave of attacks, Nonsense actually didn't die. Wang Yu casually tossed Nonsense forward, creating an opening in the encirclement. Then, she leaped into the air and followed Nonsense out of the encirclement. Before Nonsense, who had been thrown to the ground, could get up, Wang Yu descended from the sky and stomped on him, turning him into a white light with one foot. F***ck. Nonsense's attributes were no stranger to his subordinate. As the Mad Wolf's management expert, he was an existence that ordinary players could only look up to. However, an expert of this level didn't even last 2 rounds and was killed. What kind of concept was this? Everyone looked at Wang Yu in fear. They didn't know whether or not they should go up and avenge Nonsense. The scene was extremely awkward. Why did he kill someone again? Seeing Wang Yu kill yet another person, and this person's level was not low, the bookworm could not help but hold his forehead and sigh. Large guilds generally had a protective personality. If Wang Yu killed an ordinary player, they would, at most, kill him a few times to appease their anger. However, if Wang Yu killed an elite player, Wang Yu would most likely be in big trouble in Hope City. Thinking up to this point, the bookworm could not help but look at Wang Yu sympathetically. After killing Nonsense, Wang Yu did not retaliate. Instead, he stood there and said righteously, "I don't want to cause trouble. Are you guys not done yet? Stop following me." Wang Yu's words came from the bottom of his heart. To move unhindered, after all, this guild was a nuisance. Wang Yu was also a person who cared about his reputation. Back when his wife had been captured, he had not taken the initiative to seek help from evildoers run wild. This time, because of such a small matter, Wang Yu really did not want to seek help from evildoers run wild. Chapter 932. For the sake of evildoers run wild, Wang Yu deliberately tolerated them. However, some people's thinking was not normal. They always thought that others tolerated them because they were showing weakness. When the Mad Wolf players heard Wang Yu's words, they thought that Wang Yu was afraid of them. The courage that had disappeared immediately came back. They pointed at Wang Yu and shouted, "This bastard is scared. Don't let him go." As they said that, the group of people opened up a formation and rushed over again. Although Wang Yu was an easygoing person, when it came to killing people, he was no weaker than Xuanzhen's group of brave and ruthless people. If it weren't for the fact that evildoers run wild was involved in the Mad Wolf Guild, these people would have been reincarnated. At this time, Wang Yu had already tried to be polite before resorting to force, but these people still wanted to die. Of course, Wang Yu would not be lenient. Seeing that the Mad Wolf players were rushing over, Wang Yu did not retreat. Instead, he leaped forward to meet them head-on. After dodging the long-range attacks of the Mad Wolf players, the first to bear the brunt were the 2 tank classes at the front. They were the Paladin and the Shield Warrior. These 2 tanks were clearly not weak. Seeing Wang Yu approach, the 2 of them raised their shields to protect their teammates behind them, relying on their high defense and HP. The other one used taunt on Wang Yu from behind his shield. Their coordination was quite skilled. Under the forced effect of taunt, Wang Yu was involuntarily pulled in front of the Shield Warrior. At the same time, the Paladin next to him raised his shield and used Holy Shield Bash, similar to the Shield Warrior's Shield Bash, on Wang Yu. Bang! The shield hit Wang Yu's body, and Wang Yu exploded, causing the 2 to pause for a moment. At that time, the Paladin pointed at the Shield Warrior and shouted, "Old cat, it's Doppelganger Blast. He's behind you." The Shield Warrior was shocked and hurriedly turned around. As soon as he turned around, Wang Yu's big hand had already stabbed into the Shield Warrior's neck like a knife. 57845. A huge critical damage value floated up above the shield warrior's head, and his HP was instantly reduced to a sliver. F***CK. When the shield bearer saw that he had less than 1/5 of his health left, he was scared out of his wits. The other Mad Wolf players couldn't help rubbing their eyes to make sure they weren't hallucinating. Ever since the start of the game, Grandmasters of Combat had been criticized for their low attack power. They were notorious for being weak. However, Wang Yu's normal attack had almost taken the life of a tank. Could it be that the system had made a mistake? Just when everyone was panicking, the paladin not far from Wang Yu flicked his wrist and threw a charm over. Wang Yu also recognized this talisman. It was a gravity talisman. This talisman's damage was average, but it had a disgusting speed reduction effect. As a paladin's starting skill, a Skyfall Hammer and Rising Talisman could turn the opponent into a dead dog. This was one of the must-learn skills for paladins. Of course, this skill could only be used against normal players. It wasn't very useful against Wang Yu. After all, even an expert paladin like Fist of the Heaven couldn't last more than 3 hits from Wang Yu, let alone normal players. Seeing the gravity talisman flying over, Wang Yu didn't panic. He raised his leg and kicked the shield warrior, causing him to stumble and fall into the gravity talisman. The gravity talisman was nullified. Seeing that his gravity talisman had been nullified, the paladin hurriedly cast another talisman. Wang Yu raised his hand, and a white dagger flew out of his hand and stabbed into the paladin's hand, interrupting his skill. Ouch! Just as the Holy Knight was about to shout, Wang Yu had already dodged the harassment of the enemy's magic and arrows. She leaped up and rushed in front of the Holy Knight. Wang Yu stretched out both of her hands and grabbed the Holy Knight's chin with one hand, while her other hand grabbed the Holy Knight's head and jerked it backward. Gotcha! The paladin didn't even get a chance to groan before his neck was snapped by Wang Yu. The paladin turned into light and disappeared. Seeing that the situation wasn't looking good, the shield warrior crawled to his feet and tried to run. Unfortunately, he was hit by gravity, so he was slower than a snail. Wang Yu caught up to him in 2 steps and ended his life with a single punch. Wang Yu had always been ruthless. From the moment Wang Yu clashed with the 2 tanks to the moment they died, the 2 had only used 3 skills in total. All in all, it had taken less than 3 or 4 seconds. Seeing this scene, the other players who were attacking behind Wang Yu were so scared that they pissed their pants. Those 2 were tank classes, and they were famous for their thick skin and flesh. Even if the opponent was a mage class that was famous for its damage, the 2 of them wouldn't have died in such a short period of time, let alone a Grandmaster of Combat. This guy is too scary. Kill his companions first. Bullying the weak and fearing the strong was an unchanging truth. Seeing Wang Yu's ferocity, the players hurriedly turned around and pointed their spears at the bookworm, who was hiding not far away. Damn, I don't know him. The bookworm was scared out of his wits when he saw that the Mad Wolf's aggro had been transferred to him. As he retreated, he shouted, "You've got the wrong person." Ouch! Due to his panic, the bookworm's legs didn't listen to him. His left foot tripped over his right foot and he fell on his butt. The Mad Wolf players didn't care about the bookworm. They had more than 20 people against 1 person and 3 of them had been killed. They had already lost face, so they naturally had to do their best to regain some of their dignity. With a command, the arrows flew toward the back of the bookworm's head. Excluding the 3 people killed by Wang Yu, the Mad Wolf still had 20 people alive. Not to mention the clerics, half of them were ranged classes. Although they were both Grandmasters of Combat, the bookworm didn't have Wang Yu's skills. Faced with 10 ranged attackers, even an ordinary expert would have a hard time, let alone the bookworm, who had less than 5 combat power. Damn it! Seeing the arrows and magic flying towards him, the little bookworm closed his eyes and sat down on the ground, waiting for his death. Suddenly, his vision darkened. Wang Yu had leapt to the side of the little bookworm. Her hands were grasping left and right, and in the blink of an eye, all the arrows were caught in her hand. Go back. Then, Wang Yu shouted and swung his arms. The arrows in his hands flew out at the same time and hit the fireballs and icicles that were flying towards him. Every single one of them was exactly the same. Poof, 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 poof. With a series of explosions, all the magic and arrows disappeared in midair, and the jaws of the Mad Wolf players dropped to the ground. Is this a cheat? The Mad Wolf players had only one thought in their minds at this moment. Let's go. Wang Yu reached out and grabbed the bookworm's shoulder, lifting him from the ground. At this time, the bookworm's expression was almost the same as the Mad Wolf players. He had a dull look on his face, as if he had lost his soul. In a remote place like Hope City, it was obvious that there were no real experts. Even the scum of the Mad Wolf, who bullied the players, was a great expert in the eyes of the little bookworm, let alone Wang Yu, who was a godlike existence in the eyes of first-rate expert players. Chapter 933. Seeing Wang Yu's unbelievable performance, the bookworm felt that Wang Yu was no ordinary person. Nyogu, are you from a professional team? I feel like I've heard your name somewhere before. You're a walker. Haven't you heard of me? Wang Yu was puzzled by the bookworm's ignorance. The bookworm laughed bitterly. I've just joined the profession. I'm only now familiar with Hope City. As you can see, I'm a grandmaster of combat. I was forced to become a walker. Wang Yu was speechless. The reason why there were so many grandmasters of combat among the walkers was because the grandmaster of combat class had no future. That was why they chose to tour the world. Aren't you in the top 10 of the game planning section? Wang Yu asked. It's just the number of posts, the bookworm said. F***ck. Wang Yu sighed. Thank goodness he didn't listen to the kid. Otherwise, he'd be dead meat. What do we do now? I can't stay in Hope City anymore after offending Mad Wolf. The bookworm was now completely tied to Wang Yu. He couldn't run away even if he wanted to. Let's do the quest first. Wang Yu pulled the bookworm forward. What about them? The bookworm asked, pointing at the members of Mad Wolf. Ignore them, Wang Yu said. They won't chase after us anymore. As she spoke, Wang Yu pulled the bookworm along with her as they passed through the crowd of Mad Wolf players. Sure enough, forget about chasing after them. These fellows just watched as Wang Yu and Zhang Xian left. They did not even dare to move. Even though these guys weren't very strong, they often watched videos online. They had a good eye. The skills that Wang Yu had displayed just now were practically like a cheat. Going against a cheat, wouldn't that be the same as going against oneself? What a joke. As soon as Wang Yu and the bookworm left, Nonsense Wolf came back with a large group of people. After the previous lesson, Nonsense Wolf knew that his opponents were not to be underestimated. So, this time, he brought a total of 50 to 60 people with him. Every one of them was an expert no weaker than him. The mage in the lead was very flashy. He had a balding hairstyle, and his gold equipment was particularly dazzling. He also held a staff that flashed with lightning in his hand. This person was the guild leader of the Mad Wolf Guild, Trinity Cuttlefish. The group of people came to the place where the battle had taken place. Seeing his subordinates in a daze, Salmon Squid frowned, looked up at the top of the mountain, and asked, Where are they? Have they been killed back to Hope Peak? In Rebirth, after players died, they would automatically be teleported to the nearest resurrection point in the main city of the previous transfer point. At this time, the nearest resurrection point was the port resurrection point on Hope Peak. If Wang Yu and Lu Gan died, the news would definitely reach the peak. Hearing Trinity Cuttlefish's question, everyone's faces and necks turned red. The warrior who had been pushed down the mountain by Wang Yu lowered his head and stammered, They ran away. Everyone knew that grandmasters of combat could run and jump, so it was not easy to catch them. With more than 20 people against one, it was understandable that they could not catch him alive, but letting him run away was a problem of ability. Ran away? As expected, Trinity Cuttlefish was stunned. He could not help but say angrily, 20 people couldn't even stop one person? Are you all pigs? Seeing that Trinity Cuttlefish was angry, everyone hurriedly explained, No, no, boss. That Grandmaster of Combat is too strange. We couldn't stop him at all. Even Boss Jackal was killed before he could react. Really? Is he that powerful? Trinity Cuttlefish asked Nonsense Wolf skeptically. That. I didn't react in time. I think that guy must have cheated, Nonsense Wolf said vaguely. Cheated? That's an exaggeration. Trinity Cuttlefish frowned again. The operating system of Rebirth was the most advanced technology in the world. Even if there was a genius who could write a cheat code, he would be treated like a god if he did something serious. How could he use it on such a crooked path? It's not an exaggeration. He's not just cheated. He's practically a human-shaped cheat. Seeing that Trinity Cuttlefish was doubtful of Nonsense Wolf's words, everyone agreed. At this moment, a warrior who was dressed similarly to gibberish beside Salmon Cuttlefish said with a smile, Ha ha ha, what a bullsh *t-cheat. I'm afraid that your Jackal squad is not strong enough and is trying to get back at them? The guy who spoke was called 5 Wolf 6 Color. He was the leader of the 5 Wolf squad of the Mad Wolf Guild and one of the core members of the Mad Wolf Guild. After being ridiculed by 5 wolves and 6 colors, Nonsense Wolf could no longer sit still. He pointed at 5 wolves and 6 colors and said, Pervert, don't be so sarcastic. If you think I can't do it, let's have a fight. 5 Wolf 6 Color was not angry at Nonsense Wolf's provocation. Instead, he chuckled and said, Hee hee, brother Nonsense, I know I can't beat you, but don't be angry. I'm just stating the facts. If you can't beat me, just admit defeat. There's no need to say those useless words and cheat. You're really funny. You should change your name to Nonsense Wolf. F***CKU. 5 wolves and 6 colors was choked to the point that Nonsense Wolf's face darkened. He grabbed his weapon and was about to teach 5 wolves and 6 colors a lesson. That's enough, old who. Stop messing around. Trinity Cuttlefish took a step forward and stood in front of 5 Wolf 6 Color. He turned his head and said, 5 Wolf, stop talking. Boss. Nonsense Wolf Language and 5 Wolf 6 Color were about to say something, but Trinity Cuttlefish glared at them. They could only swallow their words. Do you know what that guy's name is? Trinity Cuttlefish asked Nonsense Wolf Language. Nonsense Wolf Language shook his head. I don't know. Trinity Cuttlefish was even more speechless. After fighting for so long, a few of them had died, but they didn't know what the other party's name was. It was obvious that he had initiated the attack. More than 20 people had initiated the attack, but they couldn't even defeat one person. This was pure trash. What's his class? What does he look like? Trinity Cuttlefish asked again. You guys should know this, right? Everyone thought about it and said, that guy didn't bring any weapons. As for skills, he only used clone explosion. He should be a chi master. In fact, Wang Yu had also used a knee strike to grab Nonsense Wolf Language. However, Wang Yu only used a grab and didn't use a knee strike, so these people couldn't tell what skill it was. F***CK, a chi master, and he only used one skill? Trinity Cuttlefish was having a mental breakdown. Everyone knew what kind of class a chi master was. A striker had become famous after becoming a monk, but a chi master was a squishy close-range magic damage dealer. He was known as the trash of trash. To be defeated by a chi master. What the F***CK, what about his looks? Trinity Cuttlefish wiped his sweat. Thick eyebrows, big eyes, tall and strong, square face, quite a character, dressed like a chi master, and a striker behind him, everyone said after thinking about it. Chapter 934. After a round of discussion, Wang Yu's appearance was basically confirmed. He was a burly chi master with a striker behind him. All right, we'll look for him based on this appearance. We have to find him today. Salmon Cuttlefish ordered in the guild channel. Chi Master was an unpopular class in the game. You might not even find one in 100 players. Moreover, Grandmasters of Combat belonged to the agility category. They didn't rely on getting beaten up to make a living, so the smaller the target, the better. So, burly Grandmasters of Combat were also very rare. Furthermore, there was a striker behind him with so many eye-catching characteristics. He was basically one of a kind. It was not hard to find him. Mad Wolf had a few hundred players, and Hope City was not too big. Not long after Salmon Cuttlefish sent Wang Yu's characteristics to the guild channel, a subordinate came back with news. "Boss, we found the suspect." "Where?" Salmon Cuttlefish quickly replied after receiving the news. "I heard he went to the library," the subordinate replied. "The library?" Salmon Cuttlefish was slightly stunned. The library was a special place. Other than walkers, normal players rarely went there. Could it be that this guy was just a walker? An elite player had been slaughtered by a walker. Who the hell would believe it? Sigh. Old Who, what do you want me to say about you? Thinking about this, Trywin Cuttlefish sighed and looked at Nonsense Wolf language. He finally lost all hope in Nonsense Wolf language. 5 wolves and 6 colors were even more disappointed. When they heard that Wang Yu went to the library, they instinctively thought of the walkers. One by one, they held back their laughter and cast sympathetic glances at Nonsense, who had been taught a lesson by the mouth cannon party. F***CK. What do you mean by this? Nonsense was a hot-tempered person. He was about to explode when he saw the mocking looks of his companions. Salmon Cuttlefish waved his hand to stop Nonsense. He said calmly, "All right, stop arguing. Let's surround the Wizard Academy first." Hearing what Salmon Cuttlefish said, before Nonsense Wolf language could say anything, the subordinates of Nonsense Wolf language, who had been taught a lesson by Wang Yu, all said, "We don't have enough people, right? Should we call more people?" Salmon Cuttlefish and the others were stunned by the words of the babbling underlings. After 3 seconds of silence, 5 wolves and 6 colors laughed and said, "Haha, I've said it before. There's only one soldier and one general. Brother Who, your soldiers are just like you." At the same time, everyone cast a mocking gaze at Nonsense again. Currently, Nonsense Wolf Tongue's party still had 20 people remaining. In addition to the 50 or 60 elite experts that Nonsense Wolf Tongue had called over, they now had a total of 80 people. Moreover, they were well-equipped and well-equipped. Salmon Cuttlefish was confident that these 80 people would be able to catch an expert at the level of a war god, let alone 2 Grandmasters of Combat. However, Gibberish's subordinates still wanted to call for reinforcements. Salmon Cuttlefish felt that it was an understatement to say that they were cowards. How were they cowards? They were simply incompetent, being ridiculed by everyone for spouting nonsense. Hu Yu's face lost all color. He couldn't help but vent his anger on his subordinate. "That's enough. Why are you talking so much nonsense? If I tell you to do it, then just do it. If you continue to spout nonsense, then get lost." But these subordinates still wanted to retort, but when they saw Nonsense Wolf Tongue's murderous gaze and the mocking expressions on Salmon Cuttlefish's and the others' faces, they all consciously shut their mouths. In Hope City's library, the little bookworm followed behind Wang Yu, chattering incessantly. "Nyogu, you can't be thinking of flipping through all the books here, right? Do you know how many books there are in here?" "I don't know." Wang Yu shook his head. The little bookworm said, "Have you seen me? Ever since I started playing games, I haven't leveled up. I've read books until I reached level 30. And this is only a portion of it. If you want to find clues from here, it'll probably take you 2 or 3 years." The experience gained in Rebirth was not limited to killing monsters. Exploring maps and reading books could also increase experience. The only difference was that the experience gained was relatively less than killing monsters. The little bookworm could read until level 30, so his reading capacity was definitely quite large. However, such a large reading capacity only read a small portion of the books in the library. From this, it could be seen that the library had an astonishing number of books. Hee hee. Wang Yu chuckled. Little bookworm, reading is a good thing, but sometimes you need to rely on your brain. Let me show you something. Wang Yu took the bookworm with her, and after a few twists and turns, they found an NPC in an inconspicuous corner. The NPC was a woman, dressed in dusty clothes, with glasses perched on the bridge of her nose. She had the air of an old-fashioned scholar. Do you know her? Wang Yu asked the little bookworm. Isn't this the librarian? The little bookworm was a frequent visitor to the library. He recognized the NPC at a glance. Yes. Wang Yu nodded. Let's go and say hello. Say hello? The little bookworm was a little incredulous. What's there to say hello to? Wang Yu used an honest tone to teach the little bookworm. Coming into contact with the most shameless NPC is the first step to adapting to this world. The little bookworm walked up to the librarian with a confused look on his face. He said politely, "Hello, Auntie. F***ck." Wang Yu face-bombed. The librarian turned around and stared coldly at the little bookworm. What's the matter? If there's nothing else, leave immediately. You are not allowed to talk in the library. The librarian looked like an old pedant. The little bookworm was so frightened that he almost cried. He took a few steps towards Wang Yu. She's so fierce, nonsense. Wang Yu sighed. He walked up to greet the little bookworm. Little girl, I want to ask you something. Little girl. Hearing Wang Yu's words, the little bookworm almost spat out a mouthful of blood. The librarian looked to be 4 or 5 years older than Wang Yu, and yet Wang Yu had actually called her little girl. What a shameless act! However, the librarian's reaction caused the little bookworm to change his view of the world. So it's Big Brother Iron Ox. What question do you want to ask? The librarian asked with a smile. Big Brother Iron Ox. The little bookworm was completely petrified. He stood like a statue beside Wang Yu. Do you want money, little girl? Wang Yu asked shamelessly. He looked like an old prostitute haggling with a pimp. The librarian smiled. 100 gold per question. But if Big Brother Iron Ox asks, I can give you a 50% discount. This question is free. Then, thank you. Hearing the librarian's words, Wang Yu let out a sigh of relief. With a snap of his fingers, the plan worked. There's such a thing? The little bookworm was shocked by Wang Yu's actions. He couldn't help but ask, Then can I ask a question? Chapter 935. Nyo go. She cheated me. Seeing the system notification, the little bookworm was terrified. Players could still bargain with each other, but the system was a real scammer. If it said 200 gold, it meant 200 gold. If there was no money, it could use the valuable items in the bag to pay until the player paid the debt. It was impossible to renege on the debt. The little bookworm was a weakling who did not even fight monsters. Where would he get 200 gold for the librarian? Cheated you. Don't look at these NPCs as data in the future. Wang Yu said as he took out 200 gold and stuffed it into the little bookworm's hands. Then Wang Yu asked the librarian, Where is the god of craft soul? The god of craft soul. The librarian answered accurately. Wang Yu scratched his head and said, Where is the god of craft soul in the City of Hope? The librarian said, Brother Iron Ox, there is no god of crafts in the City of Hope. Nyogo, he's playing with you. The little bookworm interrupted. What do you know? Wang Yu was cheated twice in a row. The situation was a little awkward, so he asked again, Yu Huiqing, the god of craft soul of craft Simba was left in the City of Hope. Where is it now? I'm sorry, Brother Iron Ox. My question and answer authority is limited to the City of Hope. The librarian's answer made Wang Yu understand what it meant to be cheap and not good. After the discount, The librarian's skill in cheating people had increased to another level. Just as Wang Yu was scratching his ears and cheeks in anxiety, the little bookworm asked, "Has anyone improved their realm in recent years?" "Yes. Your question has been answered. There is not enough cash in the bag." The librarian stretched out his hand to ask for money. "F***ck, you charge money like this?" The little bookworm broke down. "Yes. Your question." The little bookworm's assets were -400 gold. The little bookworm was about to curse when Wang Yu covered his mouth and threw him aside. He said to the librarian, "Give me the list of NPCs in the City of Hope who have improved their realm in recent years." "Okay. Big Brother Iron Ox." After receiving Wang Yu's order, the administrator took out a pen and paper and wrote a few words before handing it to Wang Yu. Wang Yu took it and saw the word Esther written on the paper. "Esther? Who the hell is this?" Wang Yu and the bookworm looked at each other in bewilderment. Just as Wang Yu was about to ask who Esther was, he suddenly felt a murderous intent coming from the side. At the same time, he saw an assassin raise a dagger at him. Not good. Assassin. Wang Yu instinctively let out a roar. He casually struck out with his palm and sent out a chi wave. Boom. The chi wave accurately blasted the assassin, but it passed through him and smashed into the bookshelf. Walala, the books on the bookshelf were sent flying by the chi wave. At the same time, Wang Yu and the little bookworm received a notification. System notification. Fighting is prohibited in the library. Your party will be teleported out of the safe zone in 5 seconds. F***ck. Seeing the system notification, Wang Yu knew he had fallen into a trap. The library was a building that belonged to the Wizardry Academy. It could be said that it was a safe zone within a safe zone. Fighting was prohibited there. If one violated the rules, they would be sent out of the Wizardry Academy, and the safe zone could not be used for a day. Seeing someone attack them, not to mention a martial arts expert like Wang Yu, even a normal person would subconsciously fight back. Because of this, Wang Yu was careless and fell into the trap. After a few seconds, the scenery changed for Wang Yu and the little bookworm. They were teleported outside the Wizardry Academy. The entrance of the Wizardry Academy was filled with players. Wang Yu raised his head and saw that every single one of them had a badge with a wolf's head on their chest. The warrior at the front was none other than Nonsense Wolf, who had been killed by him once. Wang Yu could not help but frown. Meow, it's the Mad Wolf Guild. These guys are really haunting me. Wang Yu looked around and found that the entrance of the Wizardry Academy was completely blocked. There wasn't even a gap. At this time, a guy dressed like a warrior looked at Wang Yu and the little bookworm and laughed. "Haha, brother Nonsense, is this the human-shaped cheat you were talking about? I thought it had 3 heads and 6 arms. I didn't expect it to be this stupid." Wang Yu and the little bookworm looked at each other and unconsciously moved away from each other. Nonsense Wolf said unhappily, "F***ck, pervert. If you don't like it, go and try." Before the 5 wolves could retaliate, Salmon Cuttlefish, who was behind Nonsense Wolf, pointed at Wang Yu and said, "Try what? There are so many of us. Are we going to fight this guy alone? Just kill him. Our brothers in the dojo can't wait any longer." As he spoke, Salmon Cuttlefish waved his staff, and a thick bolt of lightning fell from the sky and smashed towards Wang Yu's head. Boom! Wang Yu moved half a step to the side, avoiding the lightning's attack range. The bolt landed on the ground. "You really have some skill. Kill him." Salmon Cuttlefish saw that Wang Yu had dodged his spell and was slightly surprised. He waved his hand and ordered everyone to attack. The Mad Wolf Guild players received the order. The melee players quickly formed a formation and blocked the path, while the ranged players attacked Wang Yu and the little bookworm. Wang Yu saw that the other side had the advantage in numbers and was not in the mood to fight. He activated Qinggong and was about to take off when the little bookworm cried, "Nyogu, you won't leave me here, will you?" Only then did Wang Yu remember that there was a burden behind him. The little bookworm had offended the Mad Wolf Guild. There was no way he could survive in Hope City. If Wang Yu were to leave just like that, wouldn't he be killed by the others? Others leveled up by fighting monsters, but this kid leveled up by reading books. It wasn't easy. Thinking of this, Wang Yu gave up on the idea of flying away. He turned to the little bookworm and said, "How could I? I'm not that kind of person. Nyogo, watch your back." While the two were talking, the archers and magicians of the Mad Wolf Guild had already launched their ranged attacks at the back of Wang Yu's head. The little bookworm could not help but shout. When Wang Yu heard the little bookworm shout, he turned around and swung his hands. The glove on his right hand became a one-handed sword, while the glove on his left hand became a strange shield. Then, Wang Yu reached out with his right hand. The tip of the sword shook rapidly, and all the arrows were knocked down one by one. At the same time, he raised the shield in his left hand, blocking left and right, blocking all the attacks from the magicians. After a wave of attacks, Wang Yu and the little bookworm were not hurt at all. What the hell is this? Seeing this scene, everyone's eyes widened. Salmon Cuttlefish almost dropped the staff in his hand. Although Salmon Cuttlefish had been mocking Wang Yu, he did not underestimate Wang Yu's ability. After all, Salmon Cuttlefish knew how good Wang Yu was. To be able to defeat Wang Yu so easily, one had to be at least a first-rate expert. Because of this, Salmon Cuttlefish decisively gave the order to attack. Chapter 936. At this moment, the people with the most complicated feelings were none other than Nonsense and Wolf Tongue's group. Originally, Wang Yu was their enemy, and Wang Yu's strength was so powerful that these fellows should have a heavy heart. However, Nonsense, who had been looked down upon by his companions, felt an inexplicable sense of comfort when he saw the expressions on Salmon Cuttlefish's face. Frontline, surround him. At this moment, Salmon Cuttlefish snapped out of his daze and gave an order to his melee subordinates. Everyone knew that ranged attacks had low priority and were easy to block. Wang Yu had a shield in his hand, so it wasn't surprising that he could block ranged attacks. However, it wasn't so easy to block the attacks of melee classes. As the saying goes, 2 fists are no match for 4 hands, and even a strong man is no match for numbers. Not only were melee classes' attacks easier to control, but they also had high priority. Once a target was surrounded and everyone attacked together, unless it was a boss, no expert would be able to break through. Wang Yu's strength lay in his high agility. If they restricted his movements, he wouldn't be able to escape. In the blink of an eye, after receiving Salmon Cuttlefish's order, the warriors and knights led by the 5 wolves and 6 colors charged forward. Nyogo, what do we do? Little Bookworm had never seen such a scene before. Seeing so many people surrounding him, he was so scared that his legs turned to jelly. Get down! Wang Yu shouted. Little Bookworm's legs had already turned to jelly, and after hearing Wang Yu's shout, he fell to the ground. Just then, Wang Yu's right hand swung backwards, and a backhand slash slashed across the top of the bookworm's head. Ah! Little Bookworm was so scared that he grabbed his head. At the same time, behind Little Bookworm, there were flashes of white light. Clearly, these were Mad Wolf's assassins. Not good, he stuck his eyes. The other assassins in stealth saw that Wang Yu could see through stealth, and thought that Wang Yu had used an item like the Eye of Truth. In an instant, 7 or 8 assassins raised their daggers and charged at Wang Yu and Little Bookworm from all directions. Wang Yu quickly squatted down and raised the shield in his left hand to protect himself and the bookworm. Although Wang Yu's shield wasn't as big as the tower shield, its shape was strange. Wang Yu raised the shield and squatted down, blocking attacks from all directions. Clang! Dang! Dang! Clang! As the daggers fell on the shield, Wang Yu stretched out his right hand from under the shield and swung it diagonally upward. With one leg as the axis, he spun in a circle. At the same time, the tip of his sword trembled, drawing a beautiful circle of wavy lines, and accurately pierced the wrists of all the assassins. Aya! Cries of surprise rose and fell. The assassins' hands trembled, and the daggers in their hands fell to the ground. Some of the thinner ones even turned into light and disappeared. Before the few assassins could recover from their shock, Wang Yu had already stood up. With a turn of his body, another circle of sword light flashed, and almost at the same time, it slashed the assassins' throats. With a flash of white light, the Mad Wolf assassins were wiped out. F***ck. Salmon Cuttlefish saw this, and his soul almost flew out of his body. He subconsciously took a step back. That was an entire team of assassins, and they had died so mysteriously. This situation couldn't even be described as valiant. This was too strange. That's right, it was strange. Salmon Cuttlefish had played games for so long, but he had never seen such a strange person. No wonder Nonsense said that this person had cheat. Now that he thought about it, it really was the case. Stand up and follow me. After finishing off all the assassins, Wang Yu extended his leg and kicked Bookworm, who was picking up equipment on the ground, up. At this time, the Mad Wolf assassins were less than 5 meters away from the two of them. Seeing the Mad Wolf assassins getting closer, Bookworm said, "Nyogu, if you can't do it, you can leave by yourself. I can't help you." Wang Yu shook his head and said calmly, "Follow me closely. Don't die." As he said this, Wang Yu brought Bookworm to meet them head-on. F***ck, this guy wants to die. Charge. When 5 Wolves 6 Colors saw that Wang Yu dared to face them head-on, he didn't hesitate and immediately gave the order to attack. After giving the order, 5 Wolves 6 Colors and the other warriors lowered their heads and used charge on Wang Yu. At the same time, the ranged players behind them once again attacked Wang Yu. This was the power of numbers. With ranged and melee players attacking at the same time, there would always be times when one person would lose sight of the other. They didn't believe that one person could block 2 attacks at once. However, Mad Wolf had picked the wrong opponent this time. It was true that ants could kill an elephant, but it also depended on the ratio. If 10 ants wanted to kill an elephant, that was simply a dream. What kind of expert was Wang Yu? Back then, when he had charged into Finger Heaven's army of several thousand players by himself, he had not been flustered at all, not to mention the Mad Wolf's army of several dozen players. It should be known that Finger Heaven was a major guild. In terms of strength, the quality of its players was far superior to the Mad Wolf's. Wang Yu calmly repeated the same trick. He used the shield in his left hand and the sword in his right to block the arrows and magic spells. At the same time, he kicked at the warrior who was charging at him. Flash Chain Kick. In theory, charge's priority was higher than Flash Chain Kick. But what kind of skill was Flash Chain Kick? It was an instant kill skill. To place one's pride, it could instantly kill the heavens and earth. When used against Wang Yu, its power doubled. Who cares how high your priority is? I can kill you with one kick. Your priority is bullshit. Boom. Wang Yu's kick turned several of the warriors in front of him into white light. The Mad Wolf's encirclement was also thrown into disarray. With the formation in disarray, everyone rushed forward like a swarm of bees. Wang Yu didn't panic. Her eyes and ears were alert, and her left hand held the shield to protect the little bookworm behind her. The two of them walked forward calmly, step by step. At the same time, Wang Yu's longsword struck out repeatedly. Every time, it would strike the throats of the players who were about to attack them. Every time the sword struck, a life would be taken. Every step she took left a trail of white light. The little bookworm watched Wang Yu's skillful killing techniques from behind. His expression was calm, as if he were chopping vegetables. He couldn't help but tear up. He was so excited that tears welled up in his eyes. It was the kind of excitement a fan would feel when their idol signed an autograph. Damn it! Kill that striker! Mad Wolf's style of bullying the weak and fearing the strong had been passed down from generation to generation. Seeing that Wang Yu wasn't easy to deal with, Salmon Cuttlefish ordered everyone to attack the little bookworm behind Wang Yu. 5 Wolves 6 Colors raised his two-handed sword and leaped into the air. He used Collapsing Mountain to smash the little bookworm. Seeing this, Wang Yu smiled slightly. The angle of the shield in her left hand suddenly tilted, revealing the sharp barbs at the edge. Go! Immediately after, Wang Yu let out a roar and raised the shield in his hand. He swung it upwards, and the sharp barbs landed squarely on 5 Wolves 6 Colors' crotch. Wang Yu's weapon was a godly weapon. Its sharpness and quality were unparalleled. 5 Wolves 6 Colors didn't even have time to scream before he was cut in half. Chapter 937. Hiss! Seeing 5 Wolves and 6 Colors' tragic death, the players surrounding Wang Yu could not help but feel a chill run down their spines. They stopped attacking Wang Yu and involuntarily retreated. What a joke! They were just trying to make a living. There was no need to be cut into pieces. Salmon Cuttlefish saw that his subordinates were terrified and shouted angrily, "It's just one person. What are you afraid of? I'll give you 1,000 gold for killing the big guy and 100 gold for killing the small guy." Hearing Salmon Squid's words, everyone's eyes lit up again. In this day and age where gold had depreciated, 1,000 gold was $60,000. 100 gold was $6,000. This was the income of an ordinary person for a year. How were these two players? They were practically two mobile ATMs. There was a saying that humans die for wealth and birds die for food. There was also a saying that when there was a great reward, there would be brave men. The players made up their minds and charged at Wang Yu and 6 Color again. Ha! Wang Yu looked at the players surrounding him and shouted. He stomped the ground, and a circle of lightning spread out from his feet. The players who had just surrounded him were knocked back a few steps. The players looked at Wang Yu in horror, then turned their attention to the little bookworm behind Wang Yu. Meow, 1,000 gold was not easy to get, but 100 gold was free? Hope City's layout was similar to Yu Huicheng's. However, Yu Huicheng's streets were orderly, while Hope City was built around mountains. The street Wang Yu was on was the innermost district. Like Yu Huicheng's district, this was the resurrection point for all classes. The Wizard Academy and the church faced each other, and the Warrior Academy and the Wizard Academy were right next to each other. At this time, 5 Wolf 6 Color, who had been killed by Wang Yu, revived and joined the battle. He swung his greatsword and attacked the little bookworm with the others. You again! Wang Yu turned his head and glared at 5 Wolves and 6 Colors. The shield in his hand spun and danced, crashing into 5 Wolves and 6 Colors people. 5 Wolves and 6 Colors subconsciously raised their swords to block. However, the weapons in their hands were silver equipment, and they had died once, causing 20% of their weapons to be damaged. How could they resist the divine weapons in Wang Yu's hands? Clang! After a loud noise, 5 Wolf 6 Color was split into two along with his sword. The 5 players around him also turned into white light. After killing 5 Wolves 6 Colors for the second time, Wang Yu realized that he was too close to the resurrection point. There was no way he could kill all the players from Mad Wolf. Therefore, he attacked even more ferociously. His long sword danced in the air. He used the shield in his left hand to attack and defend, while the long sword in his right was like a venomous tongue. At this time, Wang Yu could not care less about showing mercy to the Mad Wolf. He did not care whether these people were evildoers Run Wild's subordinates or not. He killed everyone he saw. For a moment, the outside of the Mage Academy was in chaos. Although Wang Yu was fighting fiercely without any scruples, he still paid close attention to the attacks of the other players. His mind was calm and he would definitely kill them. Because he didn't have any scruples, Wang Yu's attacks were incomparably ruthless. The Mad Wolf's players died in such a pitiful manner that it was like a mosaic. Wang Yu and the little bookworm, on the other hand, did not suffer the slightest bit of damage from beginning to end. These people from Mad Wolf started off by collecting protection fees from scenic spots. Naturally, they were not the kind of people. The people present were also the elite players of Mad Wolf, and they had more or less killed people. Even the priests, who were not stained with karma, had seen this kind of killing too many times. However, at this moment, such a thrilling battle was something that they had never seen in their lives. In fact, the only real enemy was Wang Yu, but he was like a mad tiger, charging and attacking fiercely. All the experts who came forward to fight him were no match for him. In the game, human life was worthless, and no one was timid or afraid of death. However, seeing Wang Yu's strength and unstoppable, and hearing the screams of death, more than half of the people had the intention to escape. They all wanted to get away from this meaningless killing as soon as possible. After all, they were all going to die, and the result would be the same no matter how many times they died. Whether Wang Yu slapped their own guild in the face, or Salmon Cuttlefish offered a high reward, no one wanted to get involved in this matter. Salmon Cuttlefish looked at Wang Yu, who was killing in the crowd, and finally realized that the human-shaped cheat that Nonsense Wolf Tongue and the others were talking about wasn't an exaggeration. Of course, although Salmon Cuttlefish saw how strong Wang Yu was, he didn't see the situation clearly. Looking at the unstoppable Wang Yu, Salmon Cuttlefish's mind was filled with one thought. 70 to 80 people can't beat one person, but 700 to 800 people? I don't believe you don't have a limit. Thinking of this, Salmon Cuttlefish anxiously shouted in the guild channel, "Everyone, come to the mage revival point. I don't believe that I can't beat him." "Boss, it can't be. Isn't it just a protection fee of 1 gold? We've already lost so many people." Nonsense Wolf Tongue saw that Salmon Cuttlefish still wasn't willing to give up, and he was on the verge of breaking down. Salmon Cuttlefish said, "This isn't a matter of 1 gold. This concerns the dignity of our guild. We don't have to repay favors, but we have to repay enmity. I've always been like this. To move unhindered people, I don't believe that we can't kill him." Hearing Salmon Cuttlefish's words, Nonsense Wolf Tongue didn't say anything else. As a high-ranking member of Mad Wolf, Nonsense Wolf Tongue knew that Salmon Cuttlefish's good friend in real life, Gentle Beast, was the president of Hope City's Chamber of Commerce. To move unhindered in the game was well known. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that it was the world's largest guild. Not only was it rich and powerful, but it also had many experts. Its president was even more unfathomable. No one dared to provoke such a colossus, no matter how strong an expert was. Since Salmon Cuttlefish had said so, could Nonsense Wolf Tongue say that to move unhindered was for nothing? Wouldn't that be as ridiculous as saying that a soldier from the People's Liberation Army couldn't beat a gangster? As they spoke, Wang Yu had already brought Bookworm, who was a burden, through a bloody path. They gradually reached the periphery. Although the members of the Mad Wolf Association were still charging forward, they were no longer as ruthless as before after being subdued by Wang Yu's valiance. At this time, most of them didn't want to be scolded by Salmon Cuttlefish, so they didn't put in the effort to delay the battle. Dignity belonged to the guild, but equipment and experience were their own. No one was stupid. Because of this, the pressure on Wang Yu was a lot less than before, and he broke through the encirclement much faster. Just as Wang Yu was one step away from breaking through the encirclement, a black mass of people suddenly appeared from both ends of the street. Mad Wolf would have long since cleared the area. Now that so many people had appeared, they definitely weren't just there to watch the show. Wang Yu looked up and saw that there were at least a few hundred of them. They were all armed to the teeth and had wolf head badges on their chests. The person in the lead greeted Salmon Squid from afar. "Boss, who are we fighting?" Chapter 938. Fight who? Hearing his subordinate's question, Salmon Cuttlefish panicked. "Are you blind? Can't you see the 2 Grandmasters of Combat in front?" That person was stunned. He looked at Wang Yu in disbelief. This wasn't Salmon Cuttlefish's subordinate ignoring Wang Yu. Mad Wolf had at least 400 to 500 people. Now that they had mobilized their entire army, there would be at least 100 to 80 people. This unlucky child would never have thought that an entire guild would be needed to deal with just 2 people. The structure of this book was very strict. No matter how strong Wang Yu was, he could only fight a few dozen people at once. Fighting a few hundred was impossible. Of course, it was only 400 to 500 people. If Wang Yu wanted to run, no one could stop him. But now Bookworm was a burden. No matter how strong Wang Yu was, he couldn't bring him out. After all, when an expert like Chuanjin was surrounded, Wang Yu could only run by himself. Looking at the incoming reinforcements, Wang Yu knew that he wouldn't be able to escape this time. He sheathed his sword and shield, grabbed the bookworm with both hands, and threw it into the air. Then, with a flash of his body, he disappeared. Aya Nyogo, be gentle. After being thrown by Wang Yu like that, the little bookworm was stunned and couldn't help but cry out. Bookworm's cry didn't matter, but everyone's evil gazes were attracted to him. Everyone started attacking him. Just then, a white light passed through the concentrated attacks and wrapped around Bookworm's leg. Bookworm screamed and was pulled into the church opposite the mage school. The church was the resurrection point for priests and knights, so it was naturally a safe zone. Although there was only a door between them, it still blocked the Mad Wolf players outside. Seeing their target run into the safe zone, Salmon Cuttlefish and the others looked at each other, dumbfounded. After being slashed dozens of times, he was about to counterattack, but his target ran into the police station. Was there anything more humiliating than this? Looking at the hundreds of soldiers chasing after him, the little bookworm was extremely pleased. He made a face at Salmon Squid as he jumped in and out. "Ha! I'm out and I'm in again. Come and kill me, you idiot! F***ck. Salmon Cuttlefish flew into a rage and ordered his underlings, "Guard the door. I don't believe they can stay in there forever." "Wah, if they don't come out, are we going to guard it forever?" As soon as these words came out, everyone was silent. "Old Hua, can you King shut up?" Gibberish reminded him in a low voice. This guy was called Watching the Fire Through the Wolves, and he was also one of the core members of the Mad Wolf gang. This guy loved to talk nonsense even more than gibberish. Salmon Cuttlefish was still fuming, and when he heard Lin Fan's words, his face darkened. "What? You have something to say?" Watching the Fire from the other side was a very perceptive person. At this moment, he also noticed that Salmon Cuttlefish was not in a good mood. He quickly said, "What I mean is, isn't it a waste for us to have so many people guarding them?" "Waste my **s," Salmon Cuttlefish said. "We don't even know if these people can hold them." "Hee boss, you like to joke even more than me." Salmon Cuttlefish laughed. "Stop talking nonsense. Stand to the side." Salmon Cuttlefish glared at Salmon Cuttlefish. Salmon Cuttlefish shrunk his head and stood to the side. Salmon Cuttlefish pointed at Wang Yu and Bookworm at the door and ordered a few assassins, "You guys go in stealth and keep an eye on them. See who they are." The assassins had been slashed by Wang Yu a few times, and they were traumatized. When they heard that they were going, they panicked. "Just the few of us? If there's no other way, let's charge in together. F***CKU. It's a safe zone inside. What are you afraid of?" Salmon Cuttlefish rubbed his forehead and cursed. Oh. The few of them reacted. The fear in their hearts subsided, and they went into stealth. On Wang Yu's side, Bookworm was still taunting them through the door, but Wang Yu suddenly pulled him into the room. Bookworm saw Wang Yu's serious expression and asked, "Nyogu, what's wrong? Why are you unhappy?" "They can't do anything to us now." Wang Yu was depressed. "They can't do anything to us, and we can't do anything to them either." There were two sides to every coin. Although it was safe inside the church, Wang Yu and Wu Yu were completely trapped inside. Bookworm was safe now, but Wang Yu still had a quest on him. It was not difficult for Wang Yu to escape from these people's encirclement, but Wang Yu's quest was to go door to door to find NPCs. The Mad Wolf Guild had plenty of time to chase people all over the city. Wang Yu, who was chased by such a group of people, would not be as bored as them. Now, Wang Yu could already imagine what kind of chaotic scene it would be to complete the next mission. Wang Yu's first thought was to ask Wuji for help, but with the temper of the people in Xuanzhen, they would definitely mock Wang Yu for being a piece of sh*t, and then come to Hope City to make a big news. After being in Xuanzhen for so long, Wang Yu was used to being mocked by these people. To move unhindered, the Mad Wolf Guild was a guild. If they made a big news, wouldn't evildoers run wild fight with him? That was his brother. As Wang Yu was worrying about how to not hurt his brother's feelings, Bookworm chattered on, "Nyogo, don't worry. When I first went out to fight my first monster, I was more annoyed than you are now. After a while, I think it's nice to look at the scenery. You have to think about it from another perspective. We're stuck here, but it's worth it. You should know that Dawn Cathedral is the most ornamental building in the game. It's been around for thousands of years." "You're so optimistic. I have plenty of old houses at home. Why would I want to look at a cathedral?" Wang Yu was impressed by the guy. Even at a time like this, he still found it funny. "Haha, it's not the age, it's the culture. How can your broken house compare to a cathedral?" Bookworm curled his lips and looked at Wang Yu with disdain. Wang Yu thought for a moment and said, "That's hard to say, don't brag, your house is in the Forbidden City." Bookworm instinctively ignored Wang Yu's words and pointed inside the cathedral. "Oh right, Nyogo, the leader of the Holy Knights that I told you about last time is here too. Should we go take a look? He's pretty." Pretty? It seemed like this guy was in cahoots with the Wuji group. Wang Yu frowned and said, "I'm not interested. I just want to find that NPC called Hester." Chapter 939. It was undeniable that even though Bookworm was unreliable and had a wretched motive, his words still made sense. Since they were going to search, they might as well start from the church. Wang Yu was a person who listened to the advice of others. Seeing that the Bookworm's words made sense, she nodded her head and followed him into the church. Seeing Wang Yu and Scarlet Rose enter the church, the Mad Wolf assassins in charge of monitoring them were confused. So, the leader of the assassin team, Peach Wolf, quickly reported to Salmon Cuttlefish, "They're going into the church." "Going into the church?" Salmon Cuttlefish was surprised, then asked, "What are they doing in the church?" "From what that Smuff said, it seems like they're going to visit some historical sites and see the leader of the night. F***ck. Those two bastards." Hearing Peach Wolf's words, the Mad Wolf assassins were unhappy. What the F***ck? There were hundreds of people blocking the entrance of the church, but the people who were blocked were still in the mood to enjoy the scenery and the beauties as if they were on a vacation. This was a blatant humiliation to the people waiting outside the door. "Follow them. Let's see what they're up to," Salmon Cuttlefish roared. "Follow them? Boss, stop messing with us. It's not a safe zone inside." Peach Wolf panicked when he heard Salmon Cuttlefish telling him to follow them. As the area of the Church of Dawn was too large, only the revival point in the front hall was the absolute safe zone. The other places were not. Peach Blossom Wolf had been killed by Wang Yu 3 times in a row. He knew how cruel Wang Yu was, so he did not dare to follow her. "How about we go in and kill them?" Watching the fire didn't know how strong Wang Yu was, so he started to talk nonsense. Before watching the fire could finish, 5 wolves and 6 colors interrupted. "You dare to fight in the church? Have you never died before?" The Church of Light was the Radiant Church's territory. As the main religion of the Light faction, the Radiant Church's authority was even higher than that of a city lord. Any PvP activity within the Church of Light would be judged as a provocation to the Radiant Church's dignity. Killing players on the spot would be a small matter, but players with low faction honor would likely be hunted down by the Radiant Church. Although there were 3 factions in the game, light, dark, and neutral, the light faction was on the same side as the neutral faction. Most of the neutral faction's main cities had churches. Being wanted by the Church of Light was equivalent to having nowhere to go in the game. It was just a game, there was no need to take it so seriously. Not bad. Salmon Cuttlefish nodded and said, "If we don't dare to do anything, then those 2 definitely won't dare to do anything. Ahua, go ahead. We will protect you from behind. It will be absolutely safe." Absolutely safe? Boss, it's not that I don't trust you, but I still think that staying in the safe zone is the safest. Peach Blossom Wolf curled his lips and thought to himself, damn, he almost single-handedly took down Mad Wolves, and you're saying that you'll protect me? Do you really think I'm stupid? Alright. If anything happens to you, I'll give you a pension. Salmon Cuttlefish said impatiently. Hearing the mention of pension, Peach Blossom Wolf and the others perked up and said, let's go. If I die, then I die. It won't hurt or itch. After saying that, the few of them concealed themselves and quietly followed behind Wang Yu and Lu Yu. Wang Yu, who was walking in front, seemed to sense that someone was looking at him from behind. He frowned and stopped to look back. What's wrong? Little Bookworm saw that Wang Yu had suddenly stopped and asked curiously. It's nothing. Looking at the countless players behind him, Wang Yu smiled and said, there was no lack of people who loved to go sightseeing in the game. As one of the most beautiful buildings in the game, the Cathedral of Dawn definitely lived up to its name. Naturally, there were many people who came here to admire the scenery. Moreover, the entrance of the cathedral was currently blocked. Players could only enter and not leave. There were many players at the revival point, so it was normal for people to look at them. I'm probably being too paranoid. Wang Yu thought about this, then shook his head and ignored it. He continued to follow Little Bookworm. Damn, that scared me to death. I thought I was discovered. Seeing that Wang Yu had turned around, Peach Blossom Wolf and the others wiped the sweat off their foreheads in relief. This guy was probably the only one in the safe zone to be scared to this extent. Although Little Bookworm was a pugilist, he was very familiar with the cathedral. After a few turns, they passed through the front hall and arrived inside the cathedral. This is the Church of the Crusaders. The Knights of the Holy Church are here. The commander will be patrolling soon. Little Bookworm pointed at the Knights of the Holy Church and introduced the place to Wang Yu. At the same time, he said in a wretched manner, the commander is also a beautiful sight in the Cathedral of Dawn. Oh! Wang Yu wasn't in the mood to look at the beautiful commander that Little Bookworm was talking about. He looked around, wanting to greet the Knights of the Holy Church. Little Bookworm hurriedly pulled Wang Yu back. Nyogo, don't mess around. These guys are not to be trifled with. Let's go over there. As he spoke, Little Bookworm pulled Wang Yu to a corner near the entrance. There were already a few men sitting there with the same wretched expression as Little Bookworm. Do you see that door? The commander will be coming out from there. You can see it clearly from here, Little Bookworm said proudly. Hey. I have to talk to the NPC first, Wang Yu reminded. TCH, wake up. It's already good enough that you can see it. You still want to talk to him? Do you want to die? Little Bookworm didn't say anything, but the wretched men next to him laughed at Wang Yu's ignorance. Smashed? Is he above the common people? Wang Yu asked curiously. Little Bookworm said, that's not it. The duty of the Holy Knights is to protect the church. Unauthorized people are not allowed to enter this place. If you stay there and don't say anything, they will turn a blind eye and pretend they can't see you. If you take the initiative to go out, you will expose yourself. What will happen if I am exposed? Wang Yu asked. In the past, there were a few people who tried to talk to the commander and take pictures with him. Everyone died once. It's no big deal, Little Bookworm said. Wang Yu was speechless. Why is the setting of the Church of Light even more tyrannical than the Church of Darkness? They're coming, they're coming. Don't speak. Just then, a wretched man suddenly shouted in a low voice. When everyone heard this, they quickly held their breaths and stared at the door. Following a series of footsteps, a group of knights in white clothes and armor walked in with neat step. These holy knights were dressed no differently from the Holy Light City's Knights Templar. They were all heavily armored and wore an airtight helmet. Their bodies were covered like metal cans. Chapter 940. In terms of attire, the female Holy Knight was also different from the other Holy Knight. Compared to the heavy-armored knights who were dressed in white, the female Holy Knight was wearing a sky-blue inner armor under her silver-white armor. She also had a blue hair tie that was tied into a bow. Coupled with her delicate face that was as delicate as an angel, it gave her a serious and playful temperament. Even someone as composed as Wang Yu couldn't help but take another look at this girl. To be able to wear such a tight armor that it looked like a bikini, it was clear that the game designer had put in a lot of effort to design this character. It was no wonder that a mere NPC had become a part of the scenery. The little bookworm's obsession was not without reason. Actually, this was something Wang Yu didn't understand. Armor was also a type of uniform. Of course, the author, who was as pure as the main character, had also heard about it from other people. He didn't know what he was talking about. Well, back to the main topic. As the patrol team got closer, Wang Yu could clearly feel the excitement of the group of perverted men behind him, especially the little bookworm. His eyes had turned into heart shapes, and these guys were even muttering something like, "Where the king's sword points, our hearts follow." It was as if they had been brainwashed by a cult. What kind of nonsense is this? Wang Yu looked at these guys speechlessly, and casually threw a detection spell at them. Since they were looking for someone, they naturally had to do a thorough search, especially for an NPC that had used the spirit of the craftsman god, which could raise one's realm. There was an 80% chance that it was a high-level NPC. This knight commander fit the criteria very well. It was logical for Wang Yu to use the detection skill on her. However, when Wang Yu used the detection spell, he was immediately shocked. Meow, her name and attributes were all question marks. This girl was obviously an NPC above level 100. Just as Wang Yu was shocked, suddenly a perverted man beside him said gloomily, "Damn, even her name is a question mark. I wanted to add the commander as a friend." In Rebirth, players could add certain NPCs as friends, but the prerequisite was that the NPC's NPC AI was high enough, and the players knew their names. Of course, the most important thing was that the NPC's friendships were high enough. For example, Wang Yu not only had Hermit, Simba, and the others as good friends, he also had the first Apostle Erland as good friends, so he could be considered to have a wide network of friends. At this time, another vulgar-looking man beside Wang Yu said, "You want to know the Lord Commander's name?" N. The vulgar man nodded repeatedly. 10 gold coins and I'll tell you," the wretched man said with a smile. 10 gold coins wasn't a small sum to these perverted men who had nothing better to do. After hearing the perverted man's words, everyone snorted. "Pfft, only ghosts would believe you. Everyone's detection skills are the same. Why should we believe you?" "Humph. I've been selling my name here for quite some time now. I guarantee it." Perverted Man 2 laughed and shared a screenshot of his skill. Insight, rare skill. Can detect the target's attribute. Ignores level suppression. Profession requirement. General, he's amazing. After seeing the screenshot of the skill, everyone finally believed him. One by one, they cast envious gazes at him. Logically speaking, a skill like Insight was usually useless. Apart from Wang Yu, normal people wouldn't dare to provoke a guy who was full of question marks. Who would have thought that such a useless skill could be used to earn money here? There were indeed many people with special abilities in the game. "How about it? Do you want to buy it?" The Lord Commander will be leaving soon. Seeing everyone's expressions, the wretched man began to persuade everyone. 10 gold coins is too expensive. How about 5 gold coins? Everyone didn't want to be spendthrift, so they began to return the money. The wretched man was easy to talk to. He hurriedly said, "All right. Seeing that we get along so well, 5 gold coins it is. Everyone, don't say that it's 10 gold coins. That's a human." Everyone paid up, and the wretched man sent out their names one by one. Soon, the wretched man's gaze fell on the little bookworm and Wang Yu. He smiled and said, "My 2 friends, do you want names?" "I don't have money." The little bookworm spread his hands. This poor bastard's only gold coin had been taken away by the Mad Wolf Guild. Of course, he wasn't stupid. He knew that Wang Yu had money. After Wang Yu knew the name, he would definitely tell him. Why spend money? Sure enough, as the little bookworm expected, Wang Yu casually took out 10 gold coins and said, "I want it." "Nyogo, 5 is enough," the little bookworm quietly reminded him. Wang Yu smiled and said to the wretched man, 10 gold coins. Give me a screenshot of the Knight Commander's attribute. Your request is a little special. Are you going to start with your hobby? You're really different from those shallow guys. The wretched man was stunned. This kid thought of Wang Yu as a big pervert. Being treated as a wretched man, Wang Yu naturally wasn't in a good mood. He said with a straight face, "Cut the crap. Are you selling it or not?" "Yes, I'll sell it. If you pay more, I'll risk my life to get the commander's measurements for you," the wretched man said as he took the gold coins from Wang Yu's hands. At the same time, Wang Yu received a shared information. Knight of the Round Table Commander, Esther, Arthur, Level 100, Dark Gold Boss, Epic HP, 2000000 MP, 2000000 Skills, Night Mastery, Holy Bind, God's Protection, Holy Light of Judgment Talents, Round Table Faith Background Introduction. As the only female among the 12 Knights of the Round Table, Esther is definitely the most legendary one. Originally, she was just an unknown holy knight, but within 3 years she made successive breakthroughs, successfully crossed the barrier, crossed the peak of her profession, and became God's most loyal knight of the Round Table. Esther firmly believed that all this was a gift from God, and she was the chosen one. The Knight Commander is actually Esther. After seeing the stats of the Knight Commander, Wang Yu couldn't help but cry out. The reason why Wang Yu bought the stats was not because Wang Yu suspected that this guy was Esther, but because he would rather kill the wrong guy than let him go. After all, Wang Yu was rich, and 10 gold coins wasn't a problem. Who would have thought that Esther, such a masculine name, turned out to be a beautiful girl? The wretched man heard this and said unhappily, Hey, buddy, that's not nice of you. Why did you shout it out? You're leaking trade secrets, you know. Evil in the darkness, how dare you spy on me?" The perverted man was still chattering away when the patrol team suddenly stopped in their tracks. Esther, who was walking at the front, let out a loud shout and casually pulled out the 2-handed sword from her waist. A golden light flashed, and with a "duong" sound, the perverted man was cut in half. Esther's action shocked the group of peeping wretched men, and they all retreated and pressed against the wall. Chapter 941. Yes, it's me. Wang Yu was not a person who liked to lie, so he admitted it straightforwardly. Very well. Esther's eyes turned cold. She lifted the greatsword in her hand and placed it on Wang Yu's shoulder. "Nyogo, be careful." Seeing this, the little bookworm was shocked and couldn't help but cry out. However, Wang Yu's face was full of smiles, not moving an inch. "Why didn't you dodge, sir?" It seemed that this was the first time Esther had seen a player like Wang Yu. She looked very surprised. Wang Yu smiled and said, "Why should I dodge? I didn't do anything bad. God's guard wouldn't slaughter civilians for no reason." Esther smiled and put away her greatsword. "Yes, you are right. God's guard will only attack those with evil intentions. Damn! You can do that? The little bookworm heard this and his face was full of admiration. Esther was a part of Hope City's scenery. Naturally, there were many people who peeked at her, and there were even more who went up to her to seek death. The little bookworm had never seen anyone survive. Seeing that Wang Yu had gotten away so easily, the little bookworm was surprised and quickly sent a private message to Wang Yu. "Nyogo, why didn't she kill you?" "Ha ha!" Wang Yu laughed. "She's a knight of the Round Table. Do you think she's a gangster? They're the most reasonable. I was fearless and didn't dodge the attack, which means I have no evil intentions. Of course she wouldn't kill me." "Really? What would have happened if you had dodged?" The little bookworm was puzzled. "That would be the same as telling her that I have a guilty conscience." "Of course I would be killed," Wang Yu said. "Damn, using a player's conditioned reflex to kill someone. The system is too shameless." The little bookworm heard this and felt a wave of fear. Dodging after being slashed was a subconscious thing to do. Any normal person would have dodged. The system's fallacious reasoning was really deceptive. The bookworm turned to Wang Yu and asked, "But why didn't you dodge, Nyogo?" "Because I know she won't kill me." Wang Yu laughed. "Why? She doesn't have any killing intent." Wang Yu explained. "What? Nyogo, are you sure you're speaking Chinese?" When the little bookworm heard the word murderous aura, he was even more confused. It seemed that the system wasn't the only one who had such fallacies. At this time, Esther asked Wang Yu again, "Sir, why did you call my name? I'm sure you know that this is a solemn place, and you can't talk about personal matters here. If you want to add me as a friend, you'll have to wait until I get off work." As expected of an NPC who was harassed countless times a day, she had a thorough understanding of a man's behavior. This girl also thought of Wang Yu as a wretched man like Little Bookworm. "Then when do you get off work?" Little Bookworm interrupted. Esther said sternly, "As God's most valued knight, I have a great responsibility. I can't leave the temple day and night." Little Bookworm thought for a moment, then asked, "You mean you can't get off work?" "That's very accurate," Esther said. Little Bookworm was speechless. Compared to those women who only knew how to laugh and take a bath, Esther was using God as a shield. It was really impressive. Wang Yu said awkwardly, "To tell you the truth, I have some personal matters to discuss with you. I was wondering if you could spare some time to talk to me?" Of course. Esther's personality was as capable as her appearance. When faced with Wang Yu's request, she agreed without hesitation. "Sir, you're a person with no evil in your heart. I'm sure what you want to talk to me about isn't something useless." "Let's talk here," Esther said. "Didn't you say we can't talk about personal matters here?" Little Bookworm pouted. "It varies from person to person." Esther's words made Little Bookworm and the others swallow their words. It couldn't be helped. The system was the system. It was so blatant about cheating. "Then I'll be straightforward." Wang Yu thought for a moment, then asked directly, "Do you know of a tool called the Spirit of the God of Crafts?" "Yes, I do." Esther nodded and asked, "Why do you ask?" "Since you know, then it's easy." Wang Yu was overjoyed. "Then do you know the origin of the Spirit of the God of Crafts?" "Yes," Esther said. "Where is the Spirit of the God of Crafts now?" Wang Yu continued to ask. "It's on me." Esther was indeed a knight of the Round Table. She showed all the virtues of honesty and integrity vividly. "That's good. Please let me return it to its rightful owner," Wang Yu said excitedly. Although Wang Yu always used force to solve problems, he was actually a very reasonable person. Only against those who were unreasonable, Wang Yu would use force. A reasonable NPC like Esther was really hard to find in the game. It wasn't easy for Wang Yu to meet one. How could he not be excited? Unexpectedly, just when Wang Yu thought he could avoid a battle and take the God of Crafts away, Esther said coldly, "No, this is something that God gave me. As the chosen one, I can't easily hand over a God-given item to others." What God-given item? This thing belongs to Simba. He told me to find it for him. Wang Yu explained patiently. However, Simba personally gave up the spirit of the god of craft. God gave it to me. You have no right to take it back. Esther said. Well, I want it. Can't I? Wang Yu said anxiously. Esther said unhappily, what do you think a divinity is? Is it something you can throw away and take back whenever you want? Since Simba gave up the divinity, he will never be recognized by God. Even if you take the spirit of the god of crafts back, it's useless. What you said makes some sense. Wang Yu wanted to reason with Esther, but she realized that Esther's words made more sense. The spirit of the god of crafts was indeed given up by Simba himself. It no longer belonged to Simba. Asking the current owner for it was simply making things difficult for him. Wang Yu already had some complaints about this quest. Now that he heard Esther's words, he didn't want to do this quest even more. Forget it, let it be. At most, he would say that he was powerless. Just as Wang Yu made up his mind to give up on this quest, the little bookworm beside him suddenly asked, what if we insist on taking away the spirit of the god of crafts? Hey! What nonsense are you talking about? Wang Yu hurriedly stopped the little bookworm. However, it was too late. Esther had already heard what the little bookworm said. With Esther's status, she naturally wouldn't argue with the little bookworm. Hearing the little bookworm's unreasonable words, Esther didn't get angry. Instead, she smiled and said, if you want to take away the spirit of the god of crafts, I have to give up the divinity myself or be killed by you. What? Do you think you can kill me? Chapter 942. Esther's action gave everyone a fright. A church was not a place for scamming like a tavern. The church was the territory of God, so it was naturally protected by divine power. Even wooden chairs could not be damaged by normal players, let alone the rocks on the ground. One could only imagine how powerful Esther's attack was. Besides, fighting in a church was a felony. Players who PK in a church would be severely punished. The lightest punishment would be death on the spot, while the heaviest punishment would be a bounty on the entire server. Not to mention that they were enemies with an NPC like Esther. If a fight broke out, it was likely that none of them would be able to escape. Esther's words were clear. She would never willingly give up on the divinity. If anyone wanted to take it away, they would have to defeat her first. Wang Yu was a level 100 Dark Gold epic boss. Setting aside the consequences of fighting in the Church of Light, anyone with a brain wouldn't poke a hornet's nest like the Church of Light for Arya's sake. Haha, boss, those 2B** cheese are going to fight with the commander. Peach Blossom Wolf, who was in charge of monitoring Wang Yu, excitedly sent a message to Salmon Cuttlefish. No matter how ruthless Wang Yu was, could he be more ruthless than the Church of Light? If they fought, Wang Yu had no chance of winning. Mad Wolf would be the one to vent his anger. No way. Salmon Cuttlefish was stunned for a few seconds after receiving this unbelievable message. He dares to offend the Church of Light? What if he's an idiot? Peach Blossom Wolf analyzed. Then let me ask you, will you attack the commander? Salmon Cuttlefish asked. Of course not, Peach Blossom Wolf replied matter-of-factly. Then that's it. Salmon Cuttlefish said. If you don't know how to do it, how could he? Find a way to force him to fight in the church. Don't be afraid of death. You'll be rewarded. Peach Blossom Wolf looked back at Wang Yu after receiving Salmon Cuttlefish's order. Just as Salmon Cuttlefish had said, Wang Yu wasn't an idiot. Why would he provoke the Church of Light? Seeing that Esther was about to make a move, Wang Yu weighed the pros and cons. He immediately expressed that he was just asking and didn't mean anything else. With that, Wang Yu dragged the bookworm away. Seeing that Wang Yu was about to leave, Peach Blossom Wolf and the others hurriedly followed them, raising their daggers and preparing to stab them. It was the same routine as the librarians. Logically speaking, Wang Yu, who had been tricked once, wouldn't fall for it again. However, Wang Yu's decades of habits couldn't be changed so easily. Feeling the murderous intent behind him, Wang Yu even forgot where he was. Without turning his head, he pulled the peach blossom wolf in front of him and smashed the peach blossom wolf's head. F***ck. Nyogo, you're in trouble. Seeing that Wang Yu had just killed a person, the bookworm screamed as if he had touched an electric switch. The perverted men in the corner were also shocked. They all ran for the door. Before they could reach the door, the patrol team had already sealed off the entrance of the holy temple. In a few seconds they had all been killed. These perverted men didn't even know who this person was. How dare he kill people in front of the holy temple's patrol team? For God and justice. At the same time, a familiar voice rang in Wang Yu's ears. Wang Yu heard the voice and turned around. The knights on both sides of the holy temple had all moved. They were all heading towards him. On the other side, the patrol team had already killed all the players except for Wang Yu and Esther. They had also sealed off all the exit. Holy bind. Esther, who was not far away, wielded her greatsword with both hands. A golden sword aura slashed through the air. Although he knew that his opponent was strong, Wang Yu wasn't the kind of person who would sit and wait for death. In a flash, he rolled to the side and dodged Esther's sword aura. The bookworm behind Wang Yu didn't have Wang Yu's skills. He was directly entangled by the golden light. Esther waved her hand and said, "Break!" The golden light exploded and the bookworm disappeared. At this time, only Wang Yu was left in the holy temple. The Templar knights came from all directions and surrounded him. Esther pointed her sword at Wang Yu and said, "How dare you commit murder in the holy temple? How dare you defy God's might? You must die." At the same time, Wang Yu received a system notification. Because you defy God's might, Light Faction honor points -200. Wang Yu felt bitter. What bullsh*** T divine might. This was clearly self-defense. Now, 200 honor points had been deducted in one go. The Light Faction's honor points that he had painstakingly earned were going to be reset to 0 again. Of course, the most tragic thing was not his attribute. Right now, Wang Yu was surrounded by a large group of Holy Temple Knights. This was the scariest thing. Wang Yu had seen how strong these tin cans were in the Holy City. Just like dungeon monsters, they grew stronger as the players' level increased. None of them were easy to deal with. They also had battle formations. When they formed a formation, they were practically invincible. If it was under normal circumstances, Wang Yu would still be in the mood to play with them. Now, there was a team of Holy Temple Knights behind them and a level 100 boss. It would be difficult for Wang Yu to escape. Holy Meteor Spear. Seeing that Wang Yu had dodged her holy bind, Esther grabbed the air with her left hand, and a spear of light appeared in her hand. She then swung her arm, and the spear of light stabbed at Wang Yu. Wang Yu's eyes narrowed. Just as he was about to dodge, the spear of light suddenly split into 5, each stabbing at Wang Yu's limbs and heart. Wang Yu naturally did not dare to take the skill of a big boss like Esther head-on. The moment the light stabbed at him, Wang Yu calmly rolled on the ground to avoid it. At that time, the Holy Temple Knights had already formed a formation. Their bodies flashed with holy light, and they slammed their holy shields at Wang Yu, who was on the ground. Seeing that Wang Yu was about to be smashed into a meat patty, Wang Yu leaned back and lay on the ground. He put his arms on the ground and pushed off with thunderstep. His whole body slid across the ground and out of the gap between the Holy Temple Knight's legs. Fortunately, these tin cans were not very agile. By the time they reacted, Wang Yu had already jumped to the corner of the wall. The door of the church was quite tall. The patrolling knights were only 2 meters tall, and the 10 meters tall door was like a threshold. For Wang Yu, it was basically not an obstacle. Reaching here was almost equivalent to leaving the door. However, Esther was not one of those brainless soldiers. The moment Wang Yu escaped from the encirclement, she had already noticed it. She leaped over the Holy Temple Knights, and with a swing of her empty hand, the greatsword in her hand flew out towards the back of Wang Yu, who was falling. When Wang Yu heard the sound of something breaking through the air behind him, he immediately activated his qigong. His feet stepped in the air, and he, who was originally falling, suddenly jumped up again. Esther's sword almost grazed the soles of Wang Yu's feet and stuck into the wall. Chapter 943. Go after him. Don't let him get away. Seeing that Wang Yu had run out of the Holy Crusader Temple, Esther grabbed the air, and the long sword flew back into her hand. She pointed at the door and gave an order to all the paladins and patrols. As she spoke, Esther flew past the patrols blocking the door and rushed out. The other paladins turned around like robots and followed behind her with heavy step. Outside the Holy Crusader Temple was the safe zone. However, Wang Yu knew that the term safe zone was only for the players. In the eyes of these NPCs, the safe zone was no different from any other place. If one offended these paladins, even in the safe zone, it would be difficult to escape death. Therefore, Wang Yu did not stop. He used his qigong to the extreme and flew over the heads of the players in the safe zone without touching the ground. What the f***ck, who is this? Seeing someone fly out of the Holy Crusader Temple, the players in the safe zone were shocked and gathered around. By then, Esther had arrived from behind. Another one. Quick, take a screenshot. The tourists who had been visiting the Church of Dawn for a long time would not let such a scene go. They quickly summoned the system elf to start taking photos and recording. Esther was not Wang Yu, who could not do anything to those who blocked her way in the safe zone. As the leader of the paladins, she had the absolute right to kill within the range of the church. Seeing that someone was blocking her way, she did not say a word and swung the cross-shaped greatsword in her hand. A ray of holy light of judgment broke through the crowd and opened a path. What the f***ck? The players were stunned by the sudden judgment. Esther, the culprit, put away her greatsword and walked through the crowd. The players gritted their teeth and were about to curse when a group of tin cans appeared behind them. They could not allow the players to speak, so they stepped on the players and walked out of the church gate expressionlessly. After a long time, the players came to their senses and could not help but wipe their eyes. They could not believe what had just happened. Outside the church, Salmon Cuttlefish had been waiting at the door for a long time after knowing that Wang Yu was being chased. Although Hope City was located in a remote area, it was equivalent to the second holy city in the game's background. It was within the Church of Light's sphere of influence. Naturally, the players in Hope City belonged to the Light faction. Helping the church to capture criminals was a win-win situation for both the camp's honor and the main city's honor. Who knows, he might even be able to increase the favorability of the temple patrol. Adding Esther as a friend or something, wouldn't that be perfect? Attack! As soon as Wang Yu stepped out of the church's entrance, Salmon Cuttlefish gave the command and the Mad Wolf's shield formation smashed down. The sudden attack from the Mad Wolf startled Wang Yu. Wang Yu hurriedly jumped back to avoid the attack. Looking at the densely packed Mad Wolf players outside, Wang Yu could not help but wipe the sweat off his forehead. He turned around and was about to return to the church. At this moment, Wang Yu saw Esther and the paladins not far behind him. With several hundred players in front of him and a level 100 boss chasing after him, Wang Yu was caught between a rock and a hard place. At this moment, Wang Yu shouted, "Hurry up and do it!" Then, he leaped into the air and stepped on the wall. "Brat, you want to play tricks?" Archers and mages attacked. There were few players in Hope City who did not know Esther, and Salmon Cuttlefish was no exception. Wang Yu's shout had no effect on Salmon Cuttlefish. Seeing that Wang Yu was trying to escape, he immediately ordered the ranged players to attack Wang Yu. "How dare you cause trouble in front of the holy court? Face the wrath of God." Salmon Cuttlefish knew Esther, but Esther did not know Salmon Cuttlefish. Seeing that the Mad Wolf players were attacking the church, she immediately ordered the paladins behind her to counterattack. Salmon Cuttlefish was still waiting for the reward with a smile on his face when he suddenly received a system notification. Mad Wolf has attacked the Church of Dawn and declared war on the Church of Light. City of Hope honor points -200, Light faction honor points -200. F***CK. How did this happen? The Mad Wolf players wanted to cry. Just as they were about to explain to Esther, they were greeted by the sharp crossbows of the paladins. Hey F***CK. Kill him. At the end of the day, the Mad Wolf players were still players. Everyone had a temper. Now that they had been forcefully punished by the system for no reason, everyone was fuming. When they saw the Templar Knights charging at them, they naturally wouldn't just sit and wait for their deaths. In for a penny, in for a pound, in for a pound. The Mad Wolf had 400 to 500 players, and they instantly drowned these tin cans. Although there were not many paladins, their individual strength was strong, and their group strength was even stronger. Both sides could be considered opponents. For a moment, no one could do anything to the other, and it was a mess. Esther's main target was Wang Yu. She didn't have the time to play with these guys from the Mad Wolf Guild. She didn't even bother to pay attention to the chaotic crowd. With a sway of her body, milky white holy light condensed behind her, forming 2 pure white wings. Spreading her wings, Esther flew into the air and landed on the top of the church. In the whole of Hope City, only Wang Yu had the ability to run on the roof. Esther was a level 100 boss. Her eyes were naturally sharp. She could also fly so she could see far away. With a glance, Esther saw the back of Wang Yu, who was running for his life. Trying to run. Esther sneered and chased after him with her sword. As it turned out, running could never be faster than flying. In just a dozen breaths, Esther had already flown behind Wang Yu. With a swing of her sword, divine fetters flew straight at Wang Yu's back. At the same time, Wang Yu, who was running, also felt the murderous intent behind him. Without looking back, he rolled diagonally forward, dodging the divine fetters. Esther thought that whether it was level or rank, she was several levels higher than Wang Yu. After being dodged by Wang Yu several times in a row, Esther was quite embarrassed. However, Esther's eyes tightened. Without waiting for Wang Yu to roll and get up, Esther held the giant sword with both hands, swooped down from above, and slashed at Wang Yu's neck. In just a moment, Esther caught up with him. Her speed was impressive. Wang Yu knew that he could not avoid it. Seeing Esther swooping down, he spread his hands and pressed the ground behind him, activating his inner breath. Just as Esther was about to slash him with her sword, Wang Yu pushed down with both hands. At the same time, his neck avoided the attack, and his feet soared into the sky. Surrounded by lightning, he kicked Esther's lower abdomen. Rabbit-kicking eagle. Although the name of the move was not nice, its power was definitely not weak. Legend had it that a weak rabbit's foot was enough to kick a powerful falcon to death. Of course, Wang Yu could not kick a level 100 boss to death with one foot. However, with the powerful priority of the enhanced version of Thunder Step, and the inertia of Esther's high-speed flight, Wang Yu kicked Esther nearly 10 meters away. Esther rolled on the ground several times before she stabilized her body. Chapter 944. As the saying goes, strike while he's down. Since the battle was inevitable, Wang Yu had to give it his all. Esther had just steadied herself, but before she could get up, Wang Yu had already pounced on her. His huge fist slammed upwards into Esther's right cheek. 2444 Don T hit people in the face. Esther was a girl, after all. Wang Yu's punch was a little too harsh. As the damage numbers floated up, Esther's head shook slightly from the blow. She pushed her right hand violently towards Wang Yu's chest. Wang Yu was already prepared. He crossed his arms to protect his chest and jumped back, dodging Esther's attack. Esther pushed her greatsword against the ground and stood up. Her long hair fluttered even though there was no wind. The aura of a powerhouse was unmistakable. The way she looked at Wang Yu also changed from that of a superior looking at an ant to one of admiration. God's 12 Knights of the Round Table were all extraordinary. Ever since Esther had been promoted to a Knight of the Round Table, not to mention a low-level smurf like Wang Yu, even opponents of the same level had not made her suffer so much. And Wang Yu not only continuously dodged Esther's skills and attacks, but he could also continuously hit Esther without taking any damage. This was the first time Esther had seen such a troublesome guy. Wang Yu himself was an expert, and he was most sensitive to the aura of a powerhouse. Seeing Esther's aura at this time, Wang Yu held his breath and focused his attention. Wang Yu knew that Esther, as a Knight of the Round Table, was a level 100 powerhouse. Her strength was not something that players could compete with. If Esther had not been careless just now, it was clear that her 2 attacks would not have been so successful. At this moment, naturally, he did not dare to be careless. Esther stood in front of Wang Yu with an imposing demeanor. She stared at Wang Yu coldly and said, "No one has ever made me suffer like this. I have underestimated you just now. I apologize for my arrogance. To show my respect, I will do my best next." Your respect really makes me feel conflicted. Wang Yu had mixed feelings when he heard this. He understood that going all out was a form of respect, but his opponent was a level 100 super boss. It was much stronger than City Lord Yu Huiqing. Wang Yu didn't feel any excitement when his opponent went all out. Usually, it was Wang Yu who went all out to bully others. Now that the roles had changed, it was a form of retribution. After all, Esther was a noble knight. She was too lazy to argue with Wang Yu. She swung her sword and waved it at Wang Yu 3 times. 3 streams of sword chi flew towards Wang Yu at an extremely fast speed. Wang Yu performed the 7 steps of Star Dipper. He twisted his body, leaned back, and moved to the side, dodging the sword chi one by one. He dodged it? Seeing that Wang Yu had dodged the sword energy, Esther frowned and flew in front of Wang Yu. Rising Dragon. Just as Wang Yu came to his senses, Esther had already launched an attack on him. Esther clenched the hilt of her sword with both hands and flicked it up, sending Wang Yu into the air. Combo slash. Immediately afterward, Esther slashed at the floating Wang Yu several times in an instant. Bang, however, Wang Yu, who was floating in midair, exploded as if he was mocking Esther. Doppelganger? Esther was shocked. She turned the big sword in her hand and drew a circle of sword light. Half Moon Slash. The sword light protected Esther from all 4 directions. But just as Esther finished releasing her move, Wang Yu appeared diagonally above Esther. At the same time, Wang Yu's body suddenly fell down and he used Eagle Stamp on the back of Esther's head. Bang bang boom! With 2 kicks of Eagle Stamp and Thunder Stamp, Esther was stomped to the ground by Wang Yu. Seeing Esther fall to the ground, Wang Yu was just about to go up and give 2 more punches. Esther suddenly turned her head, her left hand turned into a huge shadow and grabbed Wang Yu in her hand. Execution. Esther turned around and the shadow in her left hand grabbed Wang Yu and bound him in the air. Her right hand held the sword and stabbed at Wang Yu. Swoosh! Before Esther's sword arrived, Wang Yu flashed and appeared behind Esther. She hooked Esther's leg with her foot and pushed Esther's right shoulder with both hands. Esther's sword missed. She was already in a state of weightlessness. After being pushed by Wang Yu, she staggered and fell forward involuntarily. Quick sword. After all, she was a level 100 boss. At the critical moment, her sword flashed and she moved 500 meters away. She turned around and jumped, raised her sword and smashed at Wang Yu. Mountain Crumbling Slash. Wang Yu couldn't be more familiar with this move. It was a warrior's current signature skill. It was quite powerful, but the skill's release time was relatively long. For Wang Yu, it was very easy to break. Esther using this move against Wang Yu was no different from sending herself to death. Seeing Esther smashing over, Wang Yu didn't dodge. He directly went up and stretched out his hands, grabbed Esther's waist, and pulled her down in the air. Players under level 50 could only control a level 100 boss for a very short time. Even a grab skill like knee strike was not enough for Wang Yu to complete the relatively long prelude of knee strike. Moreover, the second part of knee strike's movement was particularly stiff. If he dared to use this skill in front of a boss like Esther, she could instantly kill Wang Yu with a backhand slash. Wang Yu was a veteran, so he naturally understood this. So, before Esther's control effect ended, he hurriedly used Tiger Strike to throw Esther away. Immediately after, Wang Yu followed up with a shadow chain kick and kicked Esther. 299999 Esther was sent flying by the kick. Since Wang Yu had never met an enemy that could not be insta-killed with flash chain kick, this was the first time she had seen this skill have a knockback effect. Before Esther landed on the ground, Wang Yu gathered his energy in his dantian and clasped his hands together. A fire dragon flew out of his hands and flew towards Esther. Fire Dragon Burst was currently Wang Yu's highest attack power aside from Shadow Chain Kick and toppling the mountains, overturning the seas. Wang Yu's Fire Dragon roared and flew in front of Esther in an instant. Whirlwind Slash. The moment Esther was swallowed, she forcefully released her control. Her whole body was like an invincible wheel of wind and fire. Sword light flashed and danced, cutting Wang Yu's fire dragon into several pieces. Then, she landed lightly on the ground. TSK, a super boss is so fierce. Seeing that his own skill was so weak, Wang Yu couldn't help but praise. It couldn't be helped. The gap between their levels and stats was too big. It was hard to make up for it with technique. Esther still had that otherworldly arrogance on her face, but very rarely Esther smiled. I'm very happy to fight with you. Your fighting style is very interesting. It's helped me grow a lot. If I can get your guidance, I might be able to break through to the peak of my class even without the spirit of the craftsman god. System notification. You have activated the hidden quest, 1 or 2 pointers. Do you accept? Of course. The meaning of Esther's words was clear. As long as Wang Yu could help her grow, the spirit of the craftsman god would be useless to her. As a thank you, wouldn't she be helping Wang Yu? Wang Yu was a little confused, but he was definitely a smart person. He didn't hesitate to click accept. P.S. I forgot to mention in the previous chapter's recommendation. Since it just passed the review today, Chidian shouldn't be able to search for new book. Everyone can click on author's work. City's strongest heavenly master system. For the fastest and error-free novel reading, please visit. Chapter 945. System notification. You have accepted the hidden quest, 1 or 2 pointers. Quest objective. Defeat Knight Commander Esther Arthur 0-1. Quest reward. Spirit of the God of Crafts *1. What's the difference? Seeing the quest objective, Wang Yu could not help but twitch his mouth. Anyway, Esther would not voluntarily give up the divinity no matter what. The only way to get the spirit of the God of Crafts was to kill it. In this situation, there was no difference between killing and defeating it. Just as Wang Yu was cursing in his heart, he suddenly felt Esther's aura recede a lot. The holy light wings behind her were also retracted. Wang Yu could not help but use detect. Esther's attributes were still question marks, but her name and level were displayed. At this time, Esther's level had actually dropped to level 80. You've actually dropped. Wang Yu looked at Esther in shock. He already did not know what to say. Esther smiled slightly and took out a ball that emitted red light from her chest. Her fingers pointed in the air a few times, and several golden lights shackled the red light ball in the air. This is the spirit of the God of Crafts that you want, Esther said. You actually gave up? Why? Wang Yu was shocked. He really could not understand why Esther would do this. Esther's expression was still arrogant. She looked at Wang Yu and said lightly, as a knight, fairness and justice is my code of conduct. If it was just to kill you, I would not have done this. Since we are dueling now, I must also use strength that does not belong to me. This. Wang Yu looked at her meaningfully. This was a knight. Like the ancient Chinese swordsmen, they were so old-fashioned that they were almost pedantic. However, their integrity was high and could not be insulted. You could not like them, but you could not help but admire them. As a person who had been influenced by martial culture since childhood, Wang Yu naturally valued this more than ordinary people. Looking at Esther's serious look, Wang Yu nodded at Esther. I have seen many people from the Church of Light. You are the only one I like. You too. Esther smiled and drew the long sword in her hand. Let's begin. All right. Wang Yu's eyes turned cold. He lowered his center of gravity, one hand on his chest and the other on his abdomen. Esther held the sword with both hands and leaped up. In a flash, she flashed in front of Wang Yu, and the cross-shaped sword slashed down at Wang Yu. Instant chop. Logically speaking, although Wang Yu did not lose out in the fight with Esther just now, in order to take advantage of her, Wang Yu used almost all of his strongest skills, so, if Esther was still at level 100, Wang Yu would definitely have to dodge this attack. However, if Esther was at level 80, Wang Yu wouldn't be afraid at all. After all, Wang Yu had fought with the Lord of the City, who was also a level 80 boss. In terms of strength, Lord Willie was stronger than Esther. Esther's attack was within Wang Yu's acceptable range. Facing Esther's greatsword, Wang Yu did not retreat. Instead, he took a step forward and cut into Esther's arms. At the same time, Wang Yu grabbed Esther's left wrist with his right hand and supported Esther's elbow with his left hand. He lowered his head and crawled under Esther's arm to Esther's back. Before Esther could retract her sword, Wang Yu pushed up with his left hand and used Tiger Strike with his right. Esther's left arm became sore and she lost her balance. At that time, Wang Yu's right foot thunder stomp landed on Esther's calf. Esther finally lost control of her body and fell to the ground. However, a boss was still a boss. After being knocked down by Wang Yu, Esther rolled backwards and instantly got up. She turned her sword horizontally and used quick sword displacement to close in on Wang Yu again. Wang Yu reached out with both hands to grab Esther, but Esther suddenly accelerated. She pushed away Wang Yu's outstretched arms with her shoulder and single-handedly hit Wang Yu from above. Wang Yu was directly sent flying. Rising Dragon Slash. The advanced skill of Rising Dragon Slash. When used, absolute dominance could not be grabbed, and it could also send the target flying. Flying Swallow Slash. Just as Wang Yu was sent flying, Esther's body turned into several sword lights and hit Wang Yu continuously. Finally, she grabbed Wang Yu and smashed him to the ground. Bang! A shock wave spread in all directions, and Wang Yu in Esther's hand shattered. Another fake? Seeing Wang Yu in her hand turn into pieces, Esther's pupils involuntarily shrank. Her hand that was pressed on the ground suddenly pushed, and her whole body moved half a meter to the right. Duong! At this moment, Wang Yu descended from the sky and stepped on the place where Esther had just been. You've grown quite fast. Wang Yu couldn't help but praise when he stepped on empty air. As expected of an epic boss that could grow. Esther was just a guy who relied on his own attributes and only knew how to mindlessly throw skills. Now she already knew how to dodge attacks. Heaven and Earth Cross Sword. Esther snorted coldly. She swung her long sword and slashed, drawing two rays of light that formed a cross and flew towards Wang Yu. The flying speed of the Heaven and Earth Cross Sword was not considered fast. Wang Yu turned sideways and jumped a few times in a row to avoid the two sword lights. However, just as Wang Yu dodged, Esther's left hand touched the sword blade, and the Holy Cross sword in her hand flashed with a dazzling light. Then, several phantoms flew out from Esther's Holy Cross sword. Feeling that something was wrong, Wang Yu turned his head and was instantly engulfed by the sword shadows. Esther's face also showed an expression of victory. Phantom Sword. One of the Paladin's ultimate skills, it could summon 9 phantom swords to attack the target. The damage of each phantom increased according to the user's skill level. For a user of Esther's level, the attack power of each phantom sword was naturally full. Moreover, with her knight proficiency, each phantom sword also had shockwave damage, which was extremely powerful. However, at this moment, a strange explosion came from Wang Yu's position. Hester looked towards the direction of the sound and saw that the phantom swords attacking Wang Yu had exploded one by one. In the blink of an eye, all the phantom swords had disappeared. Meanwhile, Wang Yu appeared in front of Esther again with a one-handed sword. Seeing Wang Yu, Esther's expression instantly froze. Although fearlessness was also a virtue in Esther's knight faith, this time, a trace of fear flashed across her face. You actually blocked it." After a long time, Esther asked in surprise. Wang Yu brandished his sword and said, "Insignificant skill, not worth mentioning." Indeed, Phantom Sword was an ultimate skill, and its attack power was also at Esther's level, but the speed of the sword shadows was much slower than Esther's own sword speed. Moreover, this thing would explode upon contact. In Wang Yu's eyes, this so-called ultimate skill was far inferior to the flying swallow slash just now. It was too easy to deal with. Chapter 946. How did you do it? Esther held back her surprise and stared at Wang Yu. As a level 80 boss, Esther never thought that she would be surprised by a player who was not even level 50. Illusory Sword was one of the ultimate skills. Even Esther herself was not confident that she could break it like Wang Yu, let alone an opponent who was not even level 50. Wang Yu smiled. "It's not hard to do this. You just rely too much on your skills." Although Rebirth was a holographic simulation system, there were still many aspects that were restricted to the common settings of online games. Especially the casting of skills, it was basically the same as other online games. There were prerequisites for skills and skill stun. Even a boss like Esther could not escape this setting. As a true expert, Wang Yu's realm was a few levels higher than that of a game designer. In manual mode, Wang Yu could fully integrate his own skills into his normal attacks, achieving the perfect state of being able to release his skills as he pleased, combining them at will. Players with better control could also try to reduce the prerequisites and stun of skills in manual mode. For example, small tricks like charge and whirlwind slash were one of them. However, NPCs did not have the creative intelligence of players. No matter how smart they were just a set of data. Even an intelligent NPC like Esther would not grow in battle without external factors like Wang Yu's interference. Her initial state was just like a normal boss, throwing skills at random. City Lord Willie had only exchanged a few blows with Wang Yu, but his combat level had quickly improved. From this, it could be seen that Esther's comprehension was slightly lower than City Lord Willie's. Of course, there was also the possibility that Wang Yu and Willie were of the same profession. Esther's fighting style was more agile, but her two-handed sword was a heavy weapon. Heavy weapon skills mainly dealt damage, so there were a lot of prerequisites. With Wang Yu's years of experience in martial arts, he basically knew which direction Esther was going to go when she moved her shoulders. Because of this, Esther's skills were not very effective against Wang Yu, so it was reasonable that she could not hit Wang Yu. "I see. I know what to do." As expected of an intelligent boss, Esther was able to see through it with just a hint. Listening to Wang Yu's words, Esther immediately realized where her weakness was. "Let's fight the second round." Esther gripped the hilt of her sword tightly again and slashed at Wang Yu. This time, Esther didn't use a skill. Instead, she used a normal attack. Without the prerequisites to a skill, Esther's attack speed was much faster. Her attack rhythm was also clearer. It was much smoother than when she had randomly tossed out skills. Even Esther herself felt that she had stepped into a realm that she had never experienced before, a realm where she could do as she pleased without being restricted by her skills. In Wang Yu's words, this realm was called, "No move is better than having a move." Esther's attributes were much higher than Wang Yu's. This time, after Wang Yu's guidance, her combat power rose sharply. Her two-handed sword slashed at Wang Yu faster and faster. In the face of Esther's powerful attack, Wang Yu naturally did not dare to take it head-on. He could only dodge. Under Esther's quick attack, Wang Yu was beaten back again and again. Seeing that Wang Yu was about to be forced off the roof by Esther, Wang Yu shouted and a dazzling lightning burst out of his body. The lightning was also mixed with green. At the same time, Wang Yu had an additional layer of buff on him. Tempest Fury. Player Iron Ox has been blessed by the power of Ancient Tempest. Strength and agility increased by 500%. Attacks have a paralyzing effect. Lasts for 20 seconds. Tempest Fury. This was the skill that came with the badge that Wang Yu was rewarded with when he did the Qinggong quest. This was the first time that Wang Yu used it. He did not expect the effect to be so abnormal. Wang Yu's agility and strength directly increased by 5 times. Although it only lasted for 20 seconds, for Wang Yu, it was enough to get out of the current predicament. Esther was in high spirits and did not notice the changes in Wang Yu. Seeing that Wang Yu was about to be cut off the roof by her, she stabbed again without holding back. With the blessing of Tempest Fury, in terms of strength and agility alone, Wang Yu and Esther were not much different. In terms of skills, Wang Yu was already able to fully combine normal attacks and skill attack. Naturally, Esther, a beginner, could not compare. Facing Esther's sword, Wang Yu raised his right hand and the one-handed sword in his hand stabbed Esther's wrist. The tip of Wang Yu's sword emitted a thunderbolt. Esther trembled all over and was stunned by the paralysis effect. Wang Yu took the opportunity to lower his head and turn behind Esther. Esther came back to her senses, turned around and slashed horizontally again. Wang Yu jumped lightly and the tip of the sword once again pointed at the same position on Esther's wrist. Esther's long sword lifted up. Wang Yu moved sideways and struck Esther's wrist again. In this way, in more than 10 seconds, Esther slashed more than 10 times. Wang Yu dodged them all calmly and at the same time, he struck back at Esther. The long sword in Wang Yu's hand was at a tricky and strange angle. Every sword stabbed Esther's wrist. Whether it was the angle or the position, it was exactly the same. The more Esther fought, the more frightened she became. She admired Wang Yu's swordsmanship and martial arts realm more and more. Wang Yu, on the other hand, pressed on, intending to stab Esther down from the roof. The duration of the Wrath of Wind and Thunder still had 3 seconds left. Wang Yu had also forced Esther to the edge of the roof. At this moment, Esther suddenly stopped attacking. "I lost." Esther put away the long sword in her hand and said. At this time, Wang Yu also received a system notification. "You have completed the hidden quest, give some pointers." Quest objective: defeat the Knight Commander Esther Arthur 1-1. Quest reward: Spirit of the God of Crafts *1. Stopping at the right time was the basic quality of a martial artist. Esther had already admitted defeat. Wang Yu also hurriedly withdrew the sword that had been stabbed out. Seeing this scene, Esther bowed to Wang Yu in a knight's salute and said, "You are an excellent warrior. I see humility and justice in your realm. I believe that you are not an evil person." "Well said, well said." Wang Yu's old face turned red. He did not expect this girl to be so good at talking. Wang Yu himself did not feel that there was humility and justice in his realm. "Are you willing to be my teacher and let me follow you?" Esther asked again. System notification: Knight Esther Arthur is willing to follow you. Do you accept? This. Wang Yu was stunned for a moment and said, "Aren't you a Knight of the Round Table? How can you follow me?" Esther reached out and took down the spirit of the God of Crafts that was imprisoned in the golden cage. She handed it to Wang Yu and said, Now that I have lost the realm of God, before I break through again, I can follow you to train. Wang Yu took the spirit of the god of crafts and said with a smile, I will accept this. As for following me, forget it. We can be friends. Then, Wang Yu threw a friend over. P.S. As everyone knows, writing is not an easy job. I, old cow, am also a big hand. I can only write 1 chapter in 2 hours. If it is not necessary, I am not willing to open 2 books at once. Unfortunately, there are too many pirated versions of this book. Old cow's income is not high. If he does not open a new book before this one ends, there will be a gap of 2 months. During these 2 months, there will be almost no income. Chapter 947. Esther had good eyes and could tell that Wang Yu was not an ordinary person. However, the so-called follower was naturally the kind that followed the player every day. Not to mention that Wang Yu was a man with a wife. Even if Wang Yu was a single dog now, he would still feel very uncomfortable with a beautiful girl who was not related to him following behind his but every day. After all, Wang Yu's way of thinking was slightly more conservative than most people. That's a shame. Esther was not used to being rejected. Wang Yu's behavior disappointed her. By the way, are you still going to kill me? Wang Yu quickly changed the topic. Esther shook her head and said, We, the paladins, only deal with evil people. I believe that you are a man of justice. That's good. Wang Yu smiled and sent a message to Bookworm. Let's go, brother. Little Bookworm had offended the Mad Wolf Guild in Hope City, and there was no way he could survive in Hope City. In the end, it was Wang Yu's fault that he had spoken out of turn. After all, they were friends, and Wang Yu wouldn't leave Little Bookworm alone. However, after a while, Bookworm replied, Nyogu, you really pissed off the Mad Wolf Guild this time. I'm stuck at the revival point and can't get out. Pissed off? Wang Yu frowned and then showed a helpless expression. Wasn't that right? After hearing that the Mad Wolf Guild was related to evildoers run wild, Wang Yu still showed mercy and did not kill them. However, the brainless NPCs from the Paladins did not have the concept of mercy. These metal cans were not easy to deal with. Even the few hundred people from the Mad Wolf Guild would not be able to deal with them. Not only that, the Mad Wolf Guild was suspected of attacking the Holy Court under the leadership of their guild leader. They also resisted the law. Now, the Light Faction's honor points had dropped a lot. After this incident, the Mad Wolf Guild would probably have a hard time in the Light Faction. After being tricked by Wang Yu, it would be strange if they did not get angry. Wait for me, I'm coming to get you. Wang Yu replied to the Bookworm, then ran towards the resurrection point. Although Wang Yu had been chased to the edge of the city by Esther, since they were running on the rooftops, the shortest distance between 2 points was the shortest. It didn't take long for Wang Yu to reach the first ring street. At this moment, the streets of the first ring road were filled with players. The distribution of these players' classes was quite uneven. Among them, at least 8 out of 10 were knights or warriors. Every one of them was tall and muscular. Not only were the resurrection points surrounded by these players, but even the teleportation points and the path up the mountain were also blocked. These paladins had the advantage in numbers. Their mental state and equipment were also much stronger than the motley crew from the Mad Wolf Guild. Moreover, the guild emblem on their chests looked very familiar. It was as if he had seen it somewhere before. Wang Yu thought for a moment before he realized that the only guild with such a high ratio of warriors and paladins in the game was the one that monopolized the mining area. To move unhindered was probably the only guild with such a high ratio of warriors and paladins. To move unhindered was to avenge the Mad Wolf Guild. Wang Yu hid on the rooftop and carefully observed the players on the street, looking for a breakthrough. A group of people standing at the entrance of the revival point quickly attracted Wang Yu's attention, especially the lightning magician with a staff. Wasn't that the Mad Wolf Guild's leader, Salmon Cuttlefish? However, the emblem on Salmon Cuttlefish's chest was no longer a wolf's head. Instead, it had become the same emblem as the players to move unhindered. Even the leader of the Mad Wolf Guild had joined another guild. It seemed that the Mad Wolf Guild had been completely destroyed. A tall warrior stood next to Salmon Cuttlefish. His equipment was quite fancy. Aside from a full set of gold equipment, he was also wielding a dark gold greataxe. He stood there with a golden blade in his hand, looking very intimidating. Behind the two of them, a Grandmaster of Combat was tied to a wooden pole. In order to prevent the Grandmaster of Combat from leaving the game, 4 or 5 warriors were punching the Grandmaster of Combat's face with their bare hands. Although the Grandmaster of Combat was beaten black and blue, it was not difficult for Wang Yu to recognize that it was Little Bookworm. These bastards were really ruthless. They actually captured Little Bookworm, and even thought of such a way to torture him. Seeing this scene, Wang Yu couldn't help but feel angry. The Little Bookworm was just a harmless walker. His mouth was a little dirty and his hands were a little dirty. In the end, he wasn't much of a threat. In the game, he was like a defenseless commoner. Regardless of whether it was in Rebirth or other online games, there was an unwritten rule that combat-type players were not allowed to lay a hand on players who were merely sightseeing and had nothing to do with the world. For reigning the world to bully a walker like this was a little too much. If someone were to add fuel to the fire and post it on the forums, Unhindered the world would quickly become the target of public criticism. After all, Unhindered the world's monopolization of the mining area had already incurred the dissatisfaction of many players. Everyone had been wanting to make things difficult for Unhindered the world, but they could not find an excuse to do so. To move unhindered people to attack them was very likely to become the fuse. Evildoers Run Wild had gathered such a large group of people. They must have invested a lot of money into it. If their entire business was destroyed because of these few bad players, the consequences would be unimaginable. Beast, do you think that son of AB*TCH will come? At the entrance of the Grandmaster of Combat Revival Point, Salmon Cuttlefish stood on his tiptoes and looked around as he asked the big warrior beside him. This big guy was called Gentle Beast. To move unhindered people to Hope City, he was the person in charge. He was also Salmon Cuttlefish's good friend in real life. Hearing Salmon Cuttlefish's question, Gentle Beast pointed at Little Bookworm and said impatiently, "What's the rush? He'll definitely come. He's going against Mad Wolves because of this kid. It's obvious that this kid is his good friend. As long as this kid is in our hands, he'll come." "What if he doesn't care about this kid?" Salmon Cuttlefish said. "This kid is just a walker. It doesn't matter if he's dead or not. I've spent a lot of money to clear my name. My brothers are still reflecting on their actions in the Holy Cathedral's prison." "Ha ha!" Gentle Beast laughed. "Don't worry. All the exits are blocked. If this kid wants to leave the city, he'll have to fly. What if he really can fly?" Hearing this, Salmon Cuttlefish felt even more uneasy. He knew better than anyone how the Mad Wolves were entangled with the Holy Court. Gentle Beast curled his lips and said, "Nonsense. That guy can go to the roof, but can he fly? If he dares to come, I won't let him escape." Little Bookworm heard the conversation between the two and quickly sent a message to Wang Yu. "Nyogu, you don't have to come. I'm out of danger now. I'll go to Yu Huiqing in a few days to find you." Not long after Little Bookworm sent the message, he received a reply from Wang Yu. "Idiot, look to the right." After the Little Bookworm received the message, he struggled to raise his head from the punches of the unhindered players. He saw half of Wang Yu's face peeking out from the roof on the right, waving at him. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.